probably going to have this space, but she'll be putting out, my guess is, some reporting on what we're going to be talking about here, because she was the one that texted it to me earlier when the motion was filed. So it's not, she hasn't put a thread together yet. I haven't put together a thread on it. I won't until Tracy does, because right, it's her. Number one, it's her beat a lot. She covers a lot of court cases, and her and I have been some of the voices that have been talking about Missouri v. Biden. Well, this case here is a very similar case in the same circuit, the Fifth Circuit. I believe it's in front of the same judge as well, Terry Doty, as Missouri v. Biden. So I'm gonna get into all that. I'll kind of explain what this is, what's going on here, and the motion which was filed by the plaintiffs against the Aspen Institute. So I'm going to be breaking all of this down. If you guys don't know who the Aspen Institute, I'll be breaking that down as well. I'll probably touch on some of the Missouri v. Biden stuff, which is now known as Murphy v. Missouri, after it left the Supreme Court. Not the whole case, just a temporary injunction. I'll explain that as well. But this is important, guys. These are the censorship monsters. These are the censorship machines. The machines that have been going on for a very long time, the stuff that I've been talking about for a very long time. And if you notice, the name of the case is entitled Hines v. Stamos. So this is coming out of like a health freedom group in Louisiana. This is during the COVID days, and obviously more than that. But I've had Ms. Hines in a space before when Tracy Beans and I were doing the Missouri v. Biden case. She came up because they were just filing that case at that time. This was last year. I want to say last May, maybe it was a year ago that we were talking about it. If you guys want to go check those spaces out, you can go to my highlights tab. All of those Missouri v. Biden cases are in there. Landmark censorship case, blah, 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 blah. It's all in there. So you can go back and listen to those. You can also access Tracy Bean's threads in her mega thread. I believe she's still got it pinned, the mega thread, still pinned to her profile there, I believe. You can probably find it there. I'll be in front of my computer here in about 5 minutes, but this motion's interesting. I just basically read through it. I was at the office when she texted it to me, and she got it off of Pacer, obviously, so it's in PDF format. So I can't upload it. I can't upload PDFs to X. And like I said, I don't want to thread it until Tracy does. I'm sure she's going to do something with it. So I'm going to let her do her work on that. Usually she'll take 2 or 3 days and kind of put something together, and then she'll put it out. Then most likely her and I will have a space about it. We'll talk about it again. But I just wanted to talk about it tonight. And honestly, like after last night, like I'm so retail politicked out from last night and today. I kind of want to get back into my lane a little bit. And so this is a perfect opportunity to bring all this stuff back up. Not to mention, I get to take a victory lap. Again, I'm going to do it every time. And every time I talk about censorship, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that Renee DeResta is listening to my space. Because apparently she has. She even wrote about me in her book. So I'll explain about who she is. Ex-CIA Renee. And she's very relevant to this case because this is going after the EIP, the Stanford Internet Observatory, and the Virality Project. What's interesting about that, this kind of went, I mean, I mentioned it, I talked about it, but one of the things that kind of went below the radar was that the Stanford Internet Observatory disbanded. And that was during the process of these cases getting fired up. So that's really interesting. Stanford had enough of that. Alex Stamos, Renee DeResta went scurrying away. They're not gone. I can assure you of that. But we got to find where they're at. And so we're probably going to find a lot of that in this case. And so I'm going to break all that down. If you guys want to come up with questions or anything like that, like either that, I could just do what I normally do. But I mean, I like to have conversations about this stuff. And so unfortunately, you can't access it. Let me see if anybody has done anything on X with this. I bet they have. It's all my tweets and Tracy's. And then Health Freedom Louisiana, one of the plaintiffs in the case. But it's all me, Tracy, and one of the plaintiffs in the case that are talking about it on X. I'm finding my old posts, threads. Tracy did do a thread on it back. Here, I'll do this. I'm going to add this to the nest. I'm going to put it down in the chat. Matter of fact, actually, you know what? I bet I could get her in here. Let me do that. Let me DM her this space. That would actually be awesome. So let me do that. So I'm gonna invite via DM Health Freedom Louisiana. Bingo. Send. All right. Let me see if I can get her in here, and she'll talk about it because she came in before. Like I said, she's in those old other spaces. She's a plaintiff in this case from Health Freedom Louisiana, and so most likely we'll want to come in and talk about it, especially since that's weird. Oh, okay. I was like, I went to go accept, and then it was gone. So, all right. So, if you guys want to take a look, she did. Looks like Tracy did thread this. She tagged me in it with my old at. My old at was at the wood chipper. When you got premium blue check, you can change your at. So I changed it to at Trash Discourse. So that's good. Health Freedom Louisiana also is tagged in it. But I'll kind of briefly read that for you, and then we're going to go over the motion that was filed today. But Jen, you're here if you want to come up and rock with me. I'm going to try to get Health Freedom Louisiana in here. She is the plaintiff in this Hines v. Stamos case. And there was a motion today, Jen. You're going to love this. There was a motion today filed by the plaintiffs because Aspen Institute is trying to get out of this thing, and it's actually a really strong motion. And so I'm probably going to read bits and pieces of it for people. I'll get people kind of caught up on what Hines v. Stamos is. We're going to talk about Alex Stamos, Renee DiResta, all those fun folks. I know Jen's going to love to talk about Atlantic Council and Aspen Institute. So we'll get into all that. I kind of want the room to fill in a little bit. If you guys could repost the space, I'm going to make it a good one for you. I know it's 9:30 in Louisiana, but I'm going to try to get her in here. I know Tracy. It's too late for Tracy probably. She's doing mom stuff, but we will have another space on this when yes, she came. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, I can't
Hey,
wait to talk.
Trash.
Hey, Jen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So this motion, Tracy sent this to me in text today, and it's a motion filed by plaintiffs, obviously, because Aspen Institute is trying to get themselves removed from this case, and I don't think Aspen Institute deserves to be removed from this case. And so I guess Tracy pulled it off of Pacer and sent it to me. So it's in PDF format. She has not written a thread about it, so I didn't want to jump her on it. But I can just read some of it. And I invited Health Freedom Louisiana to the space, who is here if you want to speak with us or maybe give us a rundown on what's going on. That's why I've invited you here. Great. Awesome. So she did come, guys. That was awesome. I was hoping it wasn't too late on the East Coast. Us left coasters, we operate in a different world in the Matrix. So Jen, how are you?
I'm good, Trash. How are you?
I'm pretty good, and super excited about this one. And I want to also tell her about um, how Renee DiResta wrote about me in her book. So that's fun. That's a lot of fun. And that's some of those people are included in this. So Alex Stamos, EIP, the Stanford Internet Observatory, Renee DiResta. I'm going to play some of those old clips because really, I mean, this runs in my opinion, because of the way that the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals really cut out a lot of these people. Now we complained and yelled and bitched and moaned on Missouri v. Biden to get CISA put back into the law into the injunction, but and they did, but they cut out a lot of these NGOs and these cutout groups, and that's why this lawsuit here, in my opinion, is so important. Because yes, of course, CISA is a massive, hub for censorship, and then the Global Engagement Center was doing all the censoring, but a lot of it came from these NGOs, Stanford Internet Observatory, the Kate Starbirds of the world. And so this motion that was filed is very exciting to me. I have not even had a chance to fully read it, but I want to get people caught up on this. So I thought the easiest way to do this, I'm going to throw you a mic here. The easiest way to do this while I'm waiting for Health Freedom Louisiana to come up. So Tracy put this out last year. This is when we did the space last year about it. In Hines v. Stamos, the case where plaintiffs from Missouri v. Biden are suing the private, public NGOs, et cetera, that engage in censorship on behalf of the government. These organizations are attempting to place a stay on proceedings until next year, after SCOTUS hears the appeal on the temporary injunction in Missouri v. Biden, which is now effectively known as Murphy v. Missouri. And that case is not looking so great. The full case, I'm sure it's okay. Actually, initially we were angry because Bobby Kennedy joined on that. and filed a amicus brief on it. We were like, oh, no, this is going to muddy the waters. It's going to make it political. But actually, he had the most standing in that case. And so that was interesting that Bobby was actually really strong on the Murphy v. Missouri. Anyway, long story boring. They're doing this because they plan to censor on behalf of the government hard, and they won't be able to do it if there's a temporary injunction issued by the judge, which is the same judge, Judge Terry Doty, down in the Fifth Circuit in Louisiana, or a discovery is ongoing. So you can read this. This is initially the original filing, and it's in there. I probably will read that, but I really do want to get Health Freedom up here. They are the plaintiff in this case. So let me go ahead and read you guys what this initially started out before I get to the motion on that was filed today as Aspen Institute is trying to get themselves removed. So I'll just read this for you. The introduction on the lawsuit to kind of catch you guys up. The defendants who are key participants in the Election Integrity Partnership and Virality Project have asked this court to stay all proceedings in this case for the next 7 months pending the resolution on Murphy v. Missouri in the Supreme Court of the United States. Only when Murphy is decided, defendants contend should the court resume any proceedings in this case, even briefing defendants' initial motion to dismiss. The motion is a transparent procedural gambit intended to evade judicial review. Defendants seek to postpone any discovery, scrutiny, or judicial review of the EIP VP Virality Project Election Integrity Partnership unlawful conduct until next year's 2024 election cycle. All the circumstances indicate that the defendants plan to ramp up their mass surveillance and mass censorship activities next year during the 2024 election cycle, and they want to evade judicial scrutiny until after that election cycle. Defendants, acting hand in glove with government officials, conducted surveillance and censorship of conservative social media speech on a colossal scale in the 2020 election cycle, and they continue to do so again during the 2022 cycle. Defendant DiResta, that is CIA Renee DiResta, I can't believe she wrote about me in her book. That's so crazy. Has publicly stated their intention to continue doing so in the future. In these circumstances, quote, it is certainly not imaginary or speculative to predict that defendants could use their power over millions of people to suppress alternate views or moderate content they do not agree with in the upcoming 2024 national election. If you take a look at the docket number 293, which is Missouri v. Biden, which is now known as Murphy v. Missouri, granting defendants requested stay would effectively deprive plaintiffs of the opportunity to develop a robust factual record to support their imminent request for preliminary injunctive relief before the 2024 election cycle. As defendants undoubtedly intend, expedited preliminary injunction-related discovery taken over 5 months to complete in Missouri v. Biden. If this is stayed until early July 2024, as defendants hope, plaintiffs will have no meaningful window to obtain such discovery before a ruling from this court on their motion for a preliminary injunction. By contrast, plaintiffs request that the court grant expedited preliminary injunction-related discovery now on a schedule that would allow discovery to be completed by the spring of 2024, followed by post-discovery supplemental briefing on their motion for preliminary injunction. This schedule will allow the court to have a benefit of both a robust factual record and the Supreme Court's ruling in Murphy v. Missouri when it rules upon plaintiff's motion for a preliminary injunction, all in time for plaintiffs to obtain relief before defendants ramp up their mass surveillance and mass censorship activities in July 2024. So all of that to say that now to remind you guys of what happened here. So what was going on in the Missouri v. Biden case was this was not the case. The entire case was not being litigated. It was a temporary emergency injunction. What that meant was that they were trying to enjoin CISA, U.S. government, Surgeon General's office, CDC, and many of these other governmental offices. Well, it was including EIP and Virality Project, but those were kicked out by Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal. But that's why this lawsuit was so important, because it really needs to go after those people too. But the injunction was essentially to temporarily prevent any censorship, mass surveillance requests by these agencies during the election cycle, and while the case was still ongoing, because basically it's assumed that case is going to go for a year and a half, 2 years at minimum. And so that's long after the 2024 election cycle. And so the whole point of getting a temporary emergency injunction, it went all the way up to, well, so basically Terry Doty on July 4th dropped a damning 9-part temporary injunction. Like, he's such a base judge. He dropped it on July 4th. It was a huge win. Then it went to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. It's a three-judge panel. and they basically gutted out all of it, including CISA. They left the White House in their CDC. I'm sorry, Surgeon General's office. Then we all pitched a fit. There was a lot of, appealing to that, and there was a lot of public noise about it. They eventually included CISA back into that decision. Then it went to the Supreme Court. And I don't know that we made great arguments in that case at Missouri, Murphy v. Missouri, the Supreme Court, but they weren't bad. And the justices were asking the right questions. It just, for some reason, they ruled against the temporary injunction preventing the government, CISA, White House, for mass surveillance and mass censorship. It's crazy. So now it's back down, and that case is going to move forward, but it's not great. And there's some standing issues there that they're trying to raise. That's why this case was so important here. And that's why when Tracy sent that to me today, I was like, oh, I got to read this when I get home. And I've been home now for 47 minutes. I got my dinner in. And basically, this motion that was filed today, I'm going to go over. Before I do, Jen, you joined us. So anything you want to weigh in on? Because this is basically a motion that was filed because essentially, you can go through all the pages, but essentially it's Aspen Institute trying to remove themselves from this. And they're making the argument that Aspen Institute has no business being removed from this. And in conclusion, for those reasons, the court should deny the Aspen Institute's motion to dismiss. So before I go there, Health Freedom, Louisiana, good to see you. I can't remember your first name. It's killing me. I'm so sorry. Okay. Yeah, Jen, go ahead. I think they're going to get situated over there.
No worries. They get. Oh,
Can you hear us?
Hey, Trash, I'm on, if you can
There
hear
you
me.
are.
Hey, sorry about that. This is Jill.
Jill, I forgot your first name. It's driving me crazy. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And I forgot yours. Tell me.
Aaron.
Aaron, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
See, okay, so we're even then. We're good. We're even.
Yes.
It's been a while since we talked about this stuff.
It has been a while. How are
So
you?
I'm well, and like I said, Tracy sent this to me, and I was like, okay, all right, we're still going, because like for a long time right now, we're in this political election cycle, so I'm like having to like go like into retail politics stuff and
Yeah.
having to pay attention to that. I'm just like I'm unfulfilled. I need to get back to my censorship lawfare lane,
Right. That's
So
right. Yeah.
when I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, it's time. So
Yeah.
now that you're here, Jill,
Mhm.
and you're one of the plaintiffs, I believe Hoft is as well, and
Right.
a couple of people. Do you want to kind of like maybe? I think you could probably give a better overview than I gave about what this case is going on, if you don't mind.
Sure. I don't mind at all. So initially, it is. We're taking on the third parties that acted on behalf of the government to censor Americans. Alex Stamos, of course, for Stanford Internet Observatory, Renee DiRista, as you mentioned, who, by the way, was at the Supreme Court back in March when Murphy was heard. She sat behind me and to my right when that case was heard back on March 18th. Her, Graphica, Atlantic, Counsel, Katie Starbird. I think that's probably the major players in it at the moment. So yeah, we're taking them on their part for on acting to censor Americans. They're the ones that actually surveilled social media, looking for particular offenses that would affect, algorithms and suppress speech. So it's a class action lawsuit. So not that we're doing it to make any money. I jokingly say that once we win, sign up and you can get your $4.87 too. But we wanted to do it to make them hurt, so that they would not do it again.
Yeah, and so I saw some reporting a few months ago. I started talking about it a little bit that they
Mm-hmm.
disbanded the Stanford Internet Observatory. Was it because of this case?
Well, it's interesting. Once Missouri v. Biden kind of took steam, and we filed, of course, Hines v. Stamos back in, I want to say, May of last year. So it's been, it's over a year old. So it wasn't initially because of our case, but because we were gaining so much momentum with Missouri. I think that was part of it. And then, of course, with the discovery. So I'm not sure exactly if we were the impetus for the dissolution of Stanford, but Stanford's not completely. A Stanford Internet Observatory is not completely dissolved. They're still working, but they did let go of some people. I don't even think Renee DiRista is with them any longer.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what's interesting to me.
Hmm. Yeah.
She wrote a book. So funny story. I don't know if you caught this, but she wrote a book, and there's a section in there where she mentions me, Mike Benz, and Matt Taibbi,
Oh, good.
and it was because we were having a Twitter space.
Uh-huh.
I got to read this to you because it's hilarious. She titled this section of the book "A Different Form of Harassment."
Oh,
I kid you not. Here it is.
wow.
I'll read it to you. So this is Renee's book. By 2023, having studied disinformation and propaganda campaigns for years, I was accustomed to facing harassment from the occasional online mob or being smeared by the occasional hyper-partisan or state-controlled media outlet. But then, on March 2nd of 2023, Matt Taibbi entered a Twitter Spaces voice chat room run by the anonymous man with a raccoon face profile picture to talk about his latest Twitter files findings with his fans. And in that chat room was Mike Benz. Trash Discourse, he says it right here. Trash Discourse, breaking FBI releases cyber plan with Kyle Seraphin, Twitter Spaces, March 2023. Jen was my co-host, actually, who's my co-host here
Yeah.
in that space. Oh, she's gone, but she'll be back. So hilarious. She's writing about it. Um, so it's just funny to me because it's like, in
Yeah.
what world would that happen? But here we are.
Right. Well, she's everywhere, though. I mean, as you mentioned, she's former CIA.
Hmm.
I think she was one of the initial instigators for the phrase anti-vaxxer. Like, I think she's one of the ones that initially propagated that name, y- and in my opinion, that is a form of censorship. She's marginalizing, a certain group of people. And was it intentional all those years ago? I don't know, but or is she just that psychologically or attached to vaccines? I don't know what it is, but she's one of the ones that initially started using that phrase all those years ago.
Yeah, and what's interesting about her, it is an interesting point
Hmm.
because I had Matt Taibbi in, I don't know, 6 months ago because he released these things called the CTI League, and this is like more of like the graphic psychological operations SJ Turk types that were running them internationally. They ran them in Turkey, and they said we can bring them here, and they talk about it so cavalier. They're so cavalier about it. It's just like, okay, you either believe the hubris that you could do this with impunity, and it's
Hmm.
unconstitutional, borderline. I mean, it's illegal in my opinion, should be,
Yeah.
or you're so ideologically aligned with whatever the blob does and
Right.
is that
Hmm.
anything outside of that is actually crazy. That you're the sane one. I
Right.
don't know which one it is. I don't know how
Yeah.
much of it's malicious versus like just ideologically subverted.
Right.
I don't have an answer for that.
I don't either. I don't either. But she's caused a lot of damage over the years.
Yeah, and the other thing is too with these groups, and what makes me lean towards malicious is
Hmm.
we're talking about like Aspen Institute, right? Former heads of CIA. We're talking,
Hmm.
Atlantic Council, like where Alex Stamos came out of. That he was doing that Summit 360, where he was bragging about what they could do extra constitutionally for the government that the
Right.
government can't do for themselves.
Right.
And so if you start adding up all those pieces, you're like, this seems malicious, and this
Hmm.
does not seem like just ideological subversion. Like
Right.
this is high level intelligence level stuff weaponized against the American people.
Agreed. And it was, they needed that to do what they did with COVID. They needed to marginalize people. They needed to see that, in my opinion, they needed to see that this form of censorship, marginalization, worked. And it did. I mean, for probably a decade before COVID, one of the most demonized groups of people were people that chose not to vaccinate or children that were not vaccinated.
Yep,
So, I mean, it worked. They needed it for COVID and it worked like a charm.
it really did. This is what Bobby's been fighting for years.
Right,
Uh,
exactly. And we have too. My
yes,
organization.
you too, of course. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, 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 it's totally fine. I mean, we just work at a state level
Yeah.
doing what we do, pretty much amplifying at the state level what Bobby and other organizations, Stand for Health Freedom, do nationally.
why don't you actually tell the group here that may not be familiar with your group? Because I mean, obviously, this case is Hines v. Stamos, Jill Hines versus Alex Stamos et al.
Right,
So yeah,
right. And of course, Missouri v. Biden is still ongoing. We're still fighting in that one too. A lot of people thought that was dismissed after Murphy, but it's still ongoing. I actually just wrote another declaration for that in our effort to prove standing and to prove continuation of harm. But my organization, Health Freedom Louisiana, it's not mine alone. I work with two other ladies, Fiorella Trapani and Ashley Houston, who actually worked in Louisiana advocating for parental rights and informed consent before I moved back to the state in 2018. They worked under the name Louisiana Parents for Vaccine Rights, and we intentionally changed it, took out the name vaccine, and just generalized it to Health Freedom Louisiana in the summer of 2019. So before COVID, we were active in the state. We had seen some trends across the country that concerned us. I'm not sure if you're familiar with California and the removal of religious exemptions over there.
yeah, that's
And
insane.
right, yeah, absolutely. And then in 2019, of course, California moved their medical exemptions under bureaucratic review too. So the state of California has to approve a medical exemption to attend school. So that just really lit a fire under us here in Louisiana. There was also a state law passed here in Louisiana in 2019 that tracked adult vaccinations. And those two major events really concerned us, spurred us into action. We started surveying political candidates on their views of parental rights and informed consent. The Louisiana chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics sent out a survey that year. 2019 was an election year for us in Louisiana, and the American Academy of Pediatrics sent out a survey asking Louisianans their opinion on mandated vaccines, and the vast majority of Louisianans approved of the idea of that. So we really wanted to get ahead of the issue and start surveying candidates. We had a fantastic election that year as far as getting opinions, so we knew going into the legislative session where we stood with pretty much every legislator. And then, of course, COVID hit. And that around March of that year, we kind of sat back and watched. But we knew that we needed to. We needed to do something to garner support for our side on this issue. So we kind of did kind of a covert mission, guerrilla warfare, if you would. And we started another grassroots organization called Reopen Louisiana in March of 2020. And that was really to get the normies, if you will, on our side and really put the issue of government overreach in front of the general population in Louisiana. We still had a great community of health freedom advocates and families here, but we really wanted to get our voice in front of people that weren't really familiar with the idea. And what we did on Reopen Louisiana on that social media platform, we challenged everything that the governor said, that Fauci said, that our Department of Health said, and it really garnered a lot of support. We really encouraged small businesses to open their doors, to defy the government. And it was, I think, a voice that the people needed to hear, and it took off. So we went from no social media presence in April of 2020 to reaching almost 1.4 million people by October of 2020. And in October of 2020 was when we had a huge hit. I mean, we've been getting random little hits on social media, but October 2020, we put out a social media post asking the public to contact the governor to rescind his mask mandate. And it got hit and it took us down. We couldn't post for 24 hours. We were also in a special legislative session that day, the very same day. So we could not communicate to people. We couldn't talk in our Facebook groups. They, wouldn't allow us to do that. We could have been that very same day. We had a piece of legislation in front of a health and welfare committee that would have prohibited a COVID vaccine mandate in the state of Louisiana before one was even on the market. This was October of 2020. And we couldn't communicate with anybody. We couldn't ask people to show up. We couldn't ask them to contact their legislators. We couldn't even get them to contact their governor because our posts had been taken down. So it really is. It's a matter of speech, but it's also a matter of us being able to communicate with our elected officials. Another First Amendment protection. And so from that point on, it was, as I've described before, it was like posting in a void. Nobody saw us on social media. It was like climbing out of a hole to get people to see our post. One person commented on our social media months later. She said, "Where did you guys go?" And I'm like, oh, it was just heartbreaking because we were really trying to do good work. And it was like every time we would, get our reach would improve, we would get another social media infraction. So anyway, that's what really kind of got us here. I think the reason we were asked to submit a declaration was in May of 2021. We were asked to testify on behalf of a social media free speech bill. So I testified in front of a legislative committee about, basically what I described to you. And at that point, we thought it was social media that was, censoring speech. We didn't realize the massive government activity going on behind the scenes. And so it was about a year after that, and we were approached by our Solicitor General at the time, who was Liz Murrell, outside of another committee hearing. We both testified in the same committee on a different bill. And she asked us if we would submit a declaration on behalf of this little lawsuit they were filing with the state of Missouri. And I said, yes. I said, we have all the screenshots. When we would have a post taken down, I would send a screenshot to my two business partners. I was like, can you believe this? This happened. So we had a lot of documented proof that we had been censored. We had taken pictures of our analytics over time because we couldn't believe the growth in our reach. I mean, one point, we're 3 stay-at-home moms, and we were reaching the quarter of the population of the state of Louisiana in a month's time. So it was really mind-boggling. But then to get the massive hits that we did was also heartbreaking. So anyway, that's kind of like what we do here. We still continue to advocate for informed consent, and parental rights, and the right to basically the right to refuse an unwanted medical intervention. And so we were just blessed to be prepared when COVID hit, and gave us lots of opportunities to do what we do.
Yeah, and again, you're speaking the story of so many people, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like this
Right.
is my seventh X account. I'm still banned from Instagram.
Wow.
I'm still banned from Facebook. And like you heard me speak. Everyone in the space has heard me speak. I am not a flamethrower. I'm actually
Right.
down the line. Like I'll tell you my politics, but I'm down the line. I have the documents. I just bring the proof and I read or play their own words. And that's what the other form of harassment that Renee DeRessa is talking about. That's what warrants me being taken down and
Right.
removed from every social media platform.
Right.
It's because I don't put a tribalistic political spin on what I'm talking about. That's
Right.
the dangerous part, right? Because
Exactly.
yeah, because you can't divide with that. You can't divide with that. Matter of fact, that's actually unifying. That's the point, I think.
Right.
So you're describing what many people, and a lot of people, including that are on this stage, especially Carolina, experience from a personal level at your level. And in this motion that was filed, because Aspen is trying to get themselves removed, they're trying to get the venue changed, all these things. Um, in this motion, let me read the background and describe for the people that are listening that may not know what was actually happening on the other side. So it's part of the background in Aspen's role in the EIP VP censorship regime. So to avoid, quote, the unclear legal authorities, including very real First Amendment questions that would arise if the government took these actions directly, defendants and their governmental allies created the Election Integrity Partnership, I believe, but the EIP and the Virality Project, collectively EIP VP. So basically, EIP just moved into the Virality Project. Once elections was over, COVID was so hot right now, they moved it and they shifted focus from election stuff to COVID stuff. which is Virality Project. And this is quoting Renee, defendant DeResta. Renee, she hates me, man, and she probably hates you guys too, but I know she hates me. Defendants, including the Aspen Institute, intertwine themselves with government officials and agencies through the EIP VP. Government officials play key roles in EIP and VP. Both entities consistently communicate and collaborate with government officials. And then obviously you've got examples here from the first amended complaint. So this is like exhibits and screenshots and documents and stuff, kind of proving your first amended complaints. Essentially, they're listed as FAC, but I'm just telling it for the space for everybody knows. And then government funding for the EIP is extensive and existential. I've talked about that like crazy. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is CISA, which is underneath the Department of Homeland Security, was directly involved in originating EIP, shared personnel with EIP, and connected EIP with state and local officials, as well as federal and CISA affiliated entities for the purpose of monitoring and suppressing so called misinformation. Pressure and coercion from government officials then induced, quote unquote, cooperation with the EIP and VP. So I'm gonna elaborate on this for them, Jill, real quick. The pressure and coercion, a lot of that from the government officials. Some of it came from CISA, some of it came from like Shelby Pearson during the EIP days. She was the head of elections at CISA at that time, underneath Radcliffe during the Trump administration. She completely went rogue. Radcliffe told her, "Don't do anything, Shelby. You're not going to be involved with social media companies." She did it anyway. Nobody talks about Shelby Pearson, and they need to. But nevertheless, now she's moved over into another and misinformation group within the government. She's no longer at the elections policy under the Office of Director of National Intelligence. But pressure and coercion, this was coming from Rob Flaherty. And then after that, Andy Slavitt a little bit, but mainly Rob Flaherty. And Rob Flaherty was the digital communications director for the Biden White House. And so he was like known as like the quote unquote Silicon Valley bully. A lot of like the White House pressure and other governmental agencies pressure and coercion against Meta and Twitter at the time. Yoel Roth was talking to him a lot, and many other people with inside X and Twitter who are no longer there, obviously, as Elon bought it and took over. But the pressure and coercion that you're talking about here is a lot from the White House, Rob Flaherty, and within the Office of Director of National Intelligence and CISA. Is there anything I missed there, Jill? I know you're just getting home, but
No, you covered it very well. Thank you.
okay, perfect. And so defendants force social media platforms to adopt and aggressively enforce content moderation policies that defendants created and publicized through the EIPVP. So this aggressively enforced, this was crazy because like Meta and UL Roth at Twitter started pushing back a little bit. They're like, yeah, this really doesn't go against any of our moderation content policies. Like, what are you talking about? We did this, and this. We don't think this crosses a line. And they're already doing too much at that point. But even then, they were like, this seems like it's crossing a line. And then Rob Flaherty would send these, phone calls or these emails, and he was aggressively like, okay, you guys have done this, but what have you done to take care of X, Y, and Z? I need to see better results, blah, blah, blah. It's on the emails. You guys can go look at the Missouri v. Biden exhibits. It's all in there. I talked about it at great length, obviously, but that's what they're talking about here. So while national in ambition, defendants operated the EIP VP on a state by state basis to monitor, track, flag speech for censorship. This is what's wild to me, Jill, because what you're describing is you're like, yeah, I mean, obviously there's a national level, but they actually went and targeted on a state by state basis to monitor, track, and flag speech. I think about the minuscule, the microscope that they were using to make sure that nothing broke through or cracked the wall or the dam of censorship, suppression, and astroturfing. So much so that state by state to do this, not even at a national level or even just at the social media company level, they were looking for groups. They were using these techniques. This is what I was talking about, the CTI League, where they were infiltrating these private groups and group chats, and then they would also be able to wedge their way in and try to break those groups apart on top of censorship and identifying these groups to begin with. The overreach was crazy. Like, this would make Stalin blush. I got to be honest with you. This is nuts. And so I don't know if Jill, if you want to explain it, but that's basically what they did. They used a systematic process for each piece of information. For example, assigned an analyst to specific state to develop expertise in and follow throughout the project. The analyst would then use in-state resources to build a case for censorship. For example, cross-referencing election officials, fact-checking organizations, local media, and mainstream outlets. So this is where,
Yeah.
Jill, I think you're going to expand on this, but let me just drop this one last piece. This is the stuff that I talk about using fact checkers, the Facts First USA, like the David Brock, Michael Teeter people that I talk about all the time. But they use this circular reporting and third-party fact-checking organizations. So they seed fake
Mhm.
or astroturfing information into these groups, and then they say, "Well, look right here. I mean, there's this article written by USA Today. There's this expose piece that's written by the Washington Post, the New York Times. Look at this third-party fact-checking group and Facts First USA and Media Matters. These guys are consulting experts. So this is obviously misinformation, malinformation, which is
Mhm.
a lie."
It is, if you don't mind. And
Yeah.
this is where I have such a problem with the decision that was made in Murphy, because the government cannot. What they said in Murphy was that because we weren't named specifically, like they did not mention Jill Hines specifically in their communications, Rob Flaherty and all these people. But what the government did was they established speech that was acceptable online and not on they can't do that. The government cannot establish what is allowed and what is not allowed. I mean, granted, there is certain speech, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't incite violence. You can't have, child pornography. And but we're not talking about those things. We're talking about, and this is what Judge Doty asked the attorneys, when he heard the case back in May of 2023. He said, if I said the vaccines don't work or the masks don't work, is that protected speech? And the government's attorneys, they said each time, possibly. That's not the way it works here. And this is what these third parties did. They established what was acceptable online. They found a way to look for it through algorithms and whatnot, through this technology. And they censored millions of people in that way without specifically naming them, like the decision came down in Murphy. So that's what's so egregious about all of this. And that's why it's so important, in my opinion, that not just Mr. Kennedy succeed at the Supreme Court or eventually in this case in Kennedy v. Biden and in Missouri, but that we succeed in Missouri v. Biden, because the government established acceptable speech and then censored people if they went outside of those parameters. And that's so, so very wrong.
It's incredibly wrong. And you spoke about a couple things here.
Mhm.
Number one, well, before I go any further, because I'm going to go read this next part, and then I'm going
Yeah.
to reinforce with Kate Starbird's own words how this system works.
Yeah.
I have it all queued up. I have all this stuff. I've been talking about
Yeah.
this stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
But before I go any further, at that time, Jeff Landry was an attorney general before he became governor. You guys
Right.
flipped the state down there.
Right.
Amazing work. I would attribute to a lot of you guys down there that did that.
Yeah.
Unbelievable work to take, right? You took governor, attorney
Yes.
general, and secretary of state.
Yes,
Wild.
we did. And treasurer too, if you want
Yes,
to.
it's so crazy. So crazy what you guys did. It was such a huge win. But at the time, Jeff Landry was working with Eric Schmidt, who now went to
Right.
Congress, and Andrew Bailey took over.
Yeah.
Jeff Landry was AG, and I think he was talking to Tracy and me, and he said, the First Amendment is not just your right to say whatever you want as long as it's not criminal,
Yeah.
inciting violence, committing a crime. But it's
Right.
also the right for people to hear your speech. That's
Right.
also part of the First Amendment. That's the big piece of this. And when he said that, I was like, that's absolutely correct. And that
Right.
really is not so much, it's not so much you. Yes, of course, you should be able to allow to say what you want.
Hmm.
But the real infraction was that no one else could hear what you're having to say. That's
Right.
the problem, right? Because
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and Jeff Landry expertly pointed that out. Who's now governor? I'm sure
Right.
doing great things in Louisiana now. So,
Oh yeah, he's doing amazing things down there,
hmm
or down here, I guess. And but that's one of the things that one of the more egregious aspects of all of this is
hmm
because we were hearing so much from people that were watching us on social media. We knew how people were suffering because they lacked adequate information.
yep,
If they had let us have free reign and not censored us, not suppressed our speech. I know there was one day that I put out just a social media post, just in passing. Something had really aggravated made me mad. I think it was when they were censoring ivermectin. And I just put out, if you need a doctor that will treat you, send us a PM. And I sat on my phone for 2 hours answering direct messages, people wanting addresses wherever they were, where they could get treatment. And it wasn't something that I could just put out on social media. It was like, it had to be, it reminds me of like, the Underground Railroad. Like we were really giving out information that doctors are still fighting the medical board for. It's just insane. I sit back and look at it and I'm like, I cannot believe what we lived through during that time. It was incredibly surreal. But it's the censorship, it killed people. It literally prevented them from having vital information at a time when all it took was going to get effective medicines, and they were literally denied that information. So it's just, I don't know. I just don't know that a class action, just a fine, would do justice to these people, what they've done, the harm that they've caused.
No, I don't think so either. But at the same time, they've been operating with impunity, and then the
Yeah,
government has the gall to make the argument, saying, "I mean, I don't know if that's breaking First Amendment or not, but we're just going to sit here and make the argument anyway."
yeah,
That is egregiously crazy to me. Number
right.
one, but number two, what we learned through what I learned. I mean, I've known this for a while, right, with the culture war stuff and how politics are going, and
Hmm.
I had friends in the Tea Party movement and Ron Paul people. Like I've known these people for years, and I've known about corruption for years. I talked about what happened with Occupy and how Wall Street and government got together and said, "Oh yeah, we can tear this down." But that's one thing. It's a whole other thing to make that hubristic argument and then want to make that argument and then feel successful by
Yeah.
defending it instead of saying, like, you know what, this is a bit of an overreach. We need to make steps to fix this. No, no, no. They want to keep going.
Hmm.
But then what we realized through the time of COVID and mandates and the jab and all this stuff and the censorship, we learned at every level, whether it's our courts, whether it's our schools, whether it's the government, whether it's any institution in this country, all of that goodwill and good faith that the American people had placed in institutions and experts, the
Hmm.
experts in every institution have failed them at
Failed.
every single turn. And then when we say something about it, shut him up.
Yep.
That's crazy.
It is. It's insane. And you're exactly correct. I mean, I can't name one entity or academia. I mean, everything has failed us during COVID. And yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and the medical boards, right? Stripping
Yes.
people's medical licenses. I mean, I talked to like
Right.
Molly Rutherford, all the Freedom Doctors. I know them
Hmm.
through Carolina here,
Yeah.
and it's like it's just nuts to me. And then what's worse about it is that they also then expect us to say, no, 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 the institutions are good, and we know what is true information, we know what is misinformation.
Right.
And what the most egregious part of all of those was malinformation. And that's what you
Right.
dealt with. Malinformation, for the people that don't know, is
Hmm.
information that's true. They just
Hmm.
don't like how the public's going to react to it. That's
Exactly.
insane.
It
That's
is.
insane.
It is. And going back to the medical boards and true information, we had medical professionals, doctors that came and testified for on several occasions down at the legislature, and they were targeted by the medical boards. And we're about to have what I call a COVID commission on September 25th and 26th here at our state capitol. The Select Committee on Homeland Security is evaluating the state's response to COVID. And some of the legislators have reached out to physicians, and they don't want to testify because they're concerned about their medical license because of what has happened during COVID. So many were attacked because of just speaking in front of the legislature, talking about effective treatments, talking about concerns about the clinical trials for the vaccines. And then they were targeted by the medical boards. All of this is an effort to suppress speech. So incredibly concerning. But yeah, I wanted to let you know that's happening. We're
Excellent.
still having effects of the censorship that they felt during COVID.
And it's just yeah, and it's ramped back up. Obviously, they have the tools, they've got the data now.
Hmm.
They had access to all the data. They've gotten even more sly with it, but we know it hasn't stopped because there's no one holding them back.
Right.
The temporary injunction was defeated at Supreme Court, which is just baffling to me. But either way, it is what it is. That's our system of justice. But here too, this is where it leads into what you had to deal with, and I believe this is where Hoft also enters the conversation because Kate Starbird was one of these analysts. And one of these analysts would also determine the origins of a piece of information and track its spread. And if an internally generated EIP ticket targeted a particular region, analysts sent a short write-up to ISAC. I'll shorten it to say ISAC, which is the Elections Infrastructure Information Sharing and Analysis Center, to share with the relevant election official. This allowed a state or local official to verify or refute the claim. So I'm gonna play this Kate Starbird clip here, Jill,
Okay.
because basically what she demonstrates with her technology out of Washington State, she has this algorithm that tracks the spread of information, so they can track the origin of the content,
Hmm.
who then shares it, what effect it has when it gets shared, by whom it's shared by. And she actually names names in this, by the way. And then at a pivotal point, when someone with a large enough platform gets it, the trajectory is then completely uncontrollable. So it actually is able to use technology to map and stop a spread at a bottleneck or an inflection point before it goes any further, and then the content never makes it out. So I'm going to play that for the space here, Jill, for people to hear. I might stop and explain who she's pointing to, but this is her. This is Kate Starbird. And then she went on crying on 60 Minutes like a few months ago. I'll play that clip later, but listen to this.
This claim went viral. These are plots that we were using almost for every incident that we picked up from this collaborative group. Our team, every time we picked up an incident, we would plot it in this way so we could see how it went viral. And what these do, this is a cumulative graph that shows the cumulative spread of a particular kind of claim. And what it has is on the y-axis is how many times it's been shared, and on the x-axis is time. And what we do is we plot each tweet on this as a shape, depending on what kind of, like what tweet type it is, if it's a retweet or a quote tweet or whatever. And we size each tweet by the size of the audience of that account. And what this allows us to do is not always, sometimes things take off with the random account somehow, but often you'll see these high follower accounts change the trajectory of a tweet, helping it go viral. So it allows us to see who is really influential in the spread of a claim. And so his original post was repeatedly retweeted, remixed, and reframed as it spread through other influential social media accounts and right-wing media outlets. We have like an account of Tim Cast, I think, really sort of changes the trajectory, and he's a American citizen journalist and a political commentator who actually gained influence through his coverage of Occupy Wall Street, but he's now aligned with right-wing populism in the United States. Another influential account in this incident belonged to the Gateway Pundit, a hyper.
That's where I said I think this is where Hoft comes in, because it's obviously naming specifically, and you can demonstrate harm. Gateway Pundit. But anyway, I'm gonna keep going.
Partisan media outlet that repeatedly spread false or misleading claims of voter fraud. In fact, I think they have something like 40 different incidents. Their domain is cited in our data of 40 different claims of voter fraud of different kinds. Eventually this false claim was amplified by the Twitter account of President Trump's son as well, which is a common kind of piece of the trajectory. Often it would eventually reach some of his closest allies and family members and be promoted from there. So online participants repeatedly activated to produce and spread information that sowed doubt in the election, highlighting irregularities and exaggerating the impact of small issues like stolen mail and spreading absolute falsehood.
So I'm actually going to list, they've got this graph here. It's interesting. So essentially there's a small account, maybe like mine. I only have like 50,000 followers. And then Elijah Schaefer, I put something out, Elijah Schaefer retweets it. Then they've got Ian Miles Chong on here, still gray. Then he retweets it. Then the Daily Mail picks up on it, writes about it. Then Tim Pool starts talking about it. Hoff at the Gateway Pundit starts reporting on it as well. And it starts going up and up and up. And at that point, it really, the junction there of getting to Tim Pool at this time, keep in mind, this is 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021. This is, once it hits Tim Pool and then Gateway Pundit, it shoots off into the stratosphere, and then Donald Trump Jr. picked up on it and sent it around. And so they have this whole thing graphed out, and then they target the people along the way, and then target them with censorship along the way. So in the future, it really is hard to get things going, content going from there. And definitely in the future, these catalysts that they mention in this graph, in this X and Y axis graph they've got here, that they never see the content to begin with. It can never go viral, or they just outright ban the smaller accounts, so they can't even put stuff out to begin with. And that's essentially what was happening to me back then. One of my accounts had 25,000 followers. I had 100,000 on one of them. This one's at 52. This is completely organic. Again, I've built this up over the last 2 years, doing exactly what we're doing here, just covering stuff down the middle, exactly what the truth is. And so this is really interesting. Jill, I don't know if you wanted to follow up on this, but this explains exactly what happened to you.
It does. That goes back again to this allowed speech, a government defined acceptable speech, and it's just incredibly egregious. And that's again why the Supreme Court decision back in March, later on, was so awful. I mean, they literally set parameters on what was acceptable and what wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. And this is also where, oh wow, I had so Jill, I had not read, I had not read this yet because just Tracy sent it to me this afternoon while I was at work, and I just got home an hour and a half ago, and I started this space at 6:30.
Mhm.
Listen to this. Oh yeah, so I was definitely spot on because listen to this. This is how Aspen and Institute is integral to that censorship regime as any other defendant, with a just as long, if not longer, history of conspiring with federal officials to squelch freedom of expression on social media. That includes on topics of election disinformation, much like other defendants. And also, like other defendants, Aspen brings together governmental officials and private sector actors to collaborate on issues like government-induced censorship. It serves as a bridge. This is what I was talking about earlier. I'll probably play that clip of Alex Stamos at the 360 Summit for Atlantic Council, which Aspen Institute is underneath that umbrella. It serves as a bridge between the federal government and social media platforms as evidence that it receives funding from both. So, as emails from Starboard reveal, Aspen has a direct role in the EIP VP and the conduct challenged in this case. Confirming Aspen's direct role, three of the major players of the EIP VP censorship machine, Kate Starbird, Alex Stamos, and Renee DiResta, worked closely with Aspen. Starbird, who you just heard, guys, and other academic institutions and not-for-profits engaged in censorship efforts and had meetings with Aspen and showed Aspen's strategic and or coordinating role in the EIP VP's censorship activities. In August in 2021, Starbird participated in a strategy session with Aspen Institute on implementing defendants' key censorship priorities, which I believe that clip is actually where I got that clip from, was from that meeting. And she was demonstrating this technology and this technique, if you would. And so this is really interesting. John, I'm going to come to you. I just wanted to kind of land this plane here and play one more clip that describes what we just read in this filing. And I've got it right here. Obviously, that's all I have to do is search these people's name, and my posts usually come up. Or Mike Benz. Mike Benz talks about this a lot too. But it's so crazy. This is not like I feel like me and Mike are like the only people on the internet talking about this besides Tracy and then us right here. It's nuts to me, and I can't get it out. Probably because I'm being censored. That's why. That's why I have like crazy viral days, and then a lot of days I'm just moved into a silo into the darkness. And I'm still dealing with it, I'm sure, because they hate me for this. So this is a minute and 17 clip, and they're talking about how EIP worked. And this is at the 360 Open Summit at the Atlantic Council, which obviously one and the same, Aspen Institute. They're all under the same people. It's just Atlantic Council is a big, broad umbrella. But this is Alex Stamos and Renee DiResta, I believe, talking about how this actually works and how they actually were able to do the things that the government can't do, and they were actually receiving funding, and they were working with all these social media companies and internet companies in a major way, and they were receiving like government grants as NGOs to be able to do this. And he's explaining, he's literally bragging out loud that they can do what the government can't do, and they're the ones behind this entire lawsuit here. Listen to this.
A lack of capability around election disinformation. This is not because CISA didn't care about disinformation, but at the time they lacked both kind of the funding and the legal authorizations to go do the kinds of work that would be necessary to truly understand how election disinformation is operating. So because of the feedback and the ideas from this group, we were able to pull together pretty quickly a project between these four different institutions to try to fill the gap of the things that the government cannot do themselves. There are kind of four major stakeholders that we operated with that we worked beside at EIP. Our partners in government, most particularly those in CISA DHS, but also in all the local and state governments with whom we operated with the election integrity infrastructure ISAC. We worked with civil society groups such as the NAACP, MITRE, Common Cause, and the Healthy Elections Project that worked at both MIT and Stanford. And then we also worked with the major platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, Nextdoor, and the like. In some of those cases, we had agreements for access to data. In other cases, we had to have individual analysts go work with them.
Yeah, and so let me read these off because you guys can see the video, but I'm going to read all the people that were in this as they mentioned, the four tiers and four major stakeholder groups. So first is government, and they've got ISAC on there, elections infrastructure. They've got CISA, and then they've got the Global Engagement Center. If you guys remember the Global Engagement Center, that's basically a hub for 9 different governmental agencies that can filter requests for censorship and suppression through this one main hub through the GEC, then run it through the ticket systems of the various different social media companies or direct contact. GEC was suppressing, banning, up to 50,000 post content and people a day, 50,000 a day, because they were all getting requests from these 9 different governmental agencies, and Global Engagement Center was really the center hub for that. Next was civil society. So you've got AARP on here, the NAACP, MITRE, which MITRE is a government. So that's a government, basically like a cutout of the DoD, the Pentagon. That's who MITRE is. So that's coming out of DoD. Common Cause, which has come up recently, which is weird. Squint, Stanford, MIT, and then the Belfer Center, which is at Harvard, I believe. It's cut off, but I believe that's Harvard. And then platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Google, TikTok, Reddit, Nextdoor, Discord, Pinterest, and then media. And they're literally saying on camera exactly what they're doing. They're receiving government public funds and direct communication as a public-private partnership. These nonprofits and these cutouts, whether they're State Department cutouts, whether they're, I mean, just say CIA, I guess, Aaron, but nevertheless, or DoD, Pentagon cutouts. And then, of course, this Atlantic Council, Aspen Institute stuff. And that's Alex Stamos himself. So the case is Hines v. Stamos. The guy that just spoke is who we're talking about here. And so they openly admitted it. It's all there, Jill. It's crazy.
It is, and I'm glad you played that clip. Not everybody's aware of the gap. That was mentioned and detailed in the initial complaint that we filed, and that's how they got their foot in the door. The gap was an inability of the states to do the surveillance that the federal government really wanted. And it was interesting how they just kind of finessed their way in because the states weren't, they didn't have the budget for somebody to sit on social media and watch and surveil it. So they said, oh, we'll just do it for you. And then it just became this monster of surveillance. So I'm so glad you played that because not everybody is aware of how the federal government really finessed their way into this role of surveillance. And it was initially planned to be a state role, and the states just weren't capable of doing it. I mean, think about a state budget, especially one, like the size of Louisiana. Our Secretary of State doesn't have a budget for surveilling social media. That would require, another person to hire and do that, and the time to do it. And they just didn't have to do it. They didn't have the capability of doing it. And that's how the federal government just parlayed their way into that little role that they created for themselves.
And it had big money behind it, right?
Yep,
Because you had,
did.
I mean, never mind governments or even foreign governments' interest or Department of Defense or, CISA, Department of Homeland Security, Intel community. Like those are big, dark budgets, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, you've got people that have a vested interest, pharmaceutical companies, for God's sakes. And they, as an NGO, I mean, they could easily get this money and it filters through in our own taxpayer money going through the Pentagon and DoD through
Right.
MITRE and these NGOs and these cutouts. And they used these I call them Band-Aid groups. That's what they are.
Yep.
They're bridging the gap of what is constitutional and legal that a government can do and what there's no law written saying that these guys can't.
Right.
And that's a big piece. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
That I was just going to say, it's such an integral part of this lawsuit because without Without that, without, because CISA, however you want to say it, was initiated because of, complaints revolving around the 2016 election and foreign Russian collusion in the election that year. And so it was established to prevent that from happening. And it was just so handy that the states weren't, capable of fulfilling that role. And lo and behold, here comes the federal government.
At a time where intel communities, global governments,
Right.
the liberal world order, the UN, NATO,
Right.
all these global interests had
Mm-hmm.
very much an interest in crushing populism. And what started that was actually, believe it or not, was Brexit.
Mm-hmm.
Brexit shook the old world aristocracy in Europe to its core. And they said, we have to crush populism. We got to do it now. And Atlantic Council is a big, big, big piece of that, right? They want the
Yeah.
war machine to keep going. They need the liberal economic world order to keep ginning, to keep moving.
Yep.
We got to get those defense contractors ginning. We got to get all these special interests ginning. And if
Yep.
these guys are on the internet breaking up our big pharma plans, if these people are on the internet breaking up our big lies about politics and the uniparty system and the liberal
Mm-hmm.
economic order, we can't have that. We cannot have that. And that's what
Exactly.
this is really about.
Exactly, and if you'll note the plans for the World Health Organization, even John Hopkins just put out a new plan on safety, healthcare security or safety or something along that, and it all incorporates all of these. The World Health Organization, one of their resolutions or amendments, they all incorporate social media censorship of information, what they have determined to be either correct or incorrect factual information. So it's a big business. It is a big business. The surveillance in and of itself, and what it will promote or prohibit when it's in place. So it's vital for these people that it continue, and that's again why our case is so important.
Yes, it is, and also control over that data. So
Yep.
my friend and business partner, we started an investigations company together, Millie Weaver. She put out a documentary called Shadowgate, and it was all about big data. If you guys probably remember the Cambridge Analytica story, how all that data is really important, and then how also training AI models using a lot of this fake lies and fake news on the internet to train these models. The reason they're so afraid, I'm gonna divert just for a second. I'm not going to go very far, but the reason that they want to control and they're so afraid and want the public to be afraid over AI is because they're afraid it's going to tell the truth. And that's another big piece of this, is that if it's collating off of free information on the internet, and it's able to, using its neural net, be able to, like, I prompt chat GPT, it lies to you, you tell it that's wrong, it's like, oh yeah, you're right, I am wrong, here's the truth. It's like, what the hell? But that's because they wanted to send this fake feedback loop of fake information and the narrative that they want to control in AstroTurf. You can't have us telling the truth on the internet. You can't have you telling the truth about or asking questions about medical freedom when big pharma and big tech want to have something else to say, or the government has something else to say, and they're afraid of the AI. That's another piece of the censorship here. That's why this is such a problem. That's why they hate Elon for buying X.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep. And so that's why this is why I fight in this lane. This is why I spend a lot of time here. I've spent the last 3 years basically talking about this and lawfare. I mean, it's election season, it's September. Obviously I'm talking retail politics. I have my own politics, right? But this is this is like existential. Like, this is way more important than anything else. And all of it's riding on that. And that's why they hate Trump too. But
Absolutely.
so I mean, it's a big fight. I feel like this is the front lines, and so I commend you for what you've done in Louisiana, and I'm glad that you joined us tonight. I don't know how much time you have. I know it's getting late. I know you're a
Yeah.
mom. It's 10:40. But so
Yes.
if before I go any further, John's had his hand up for a while. If he has a question for you, something you wanted to add, and I'll have your final thoughts. And if you want to bounce, I know it's late. So
Thank you.
Well, so Trash, I need the name of the operative that you named at the beginning, because I've been tracking this just like you. I'm actually one of the plaintiffs withstanding in the case you're mentioning. And the things you're mentioning are the things I'm proving. You mentioned DOD. I've tracked this all the way to DOD, DFAS. And
Okay, so if you go
yeah,
to Matt Taibbi's page, I had Matt in the space. We were talking about it. If you go to Matt Taibbi's page, I think you're talking about SJ Turp. Um, go go to Matt Taibbi's page and search CTI League or CTIL, and he got leaked. They have 3-part series. Him and Michael Schellenberger have a 3-part series. So there's part 2 and part 3. That's where SJ Turp enters the fray. When she had a meeting in the Obama White House in 2017, she was the one running a lot of this. That was actually being funded through Graphica, which is a DoD cutout. SJ Turp. So if you go to Matt Taibbi's page, search CTI League or CTI League or CTIL, you look for part 2 and part 3. It'll lay it all out for you.
okay, because that is something that I need. Check your DMs.
Yep.
So that you can get that. I've got some stuff I'm compiling right now because I just got denied access to the court in a way that Appellate Rule 32.1 has a non-precedential opinion, which I'm going to have to reference, which I'm about to obliterate. And we're up to Rule 5.1 on federal. So
All right.
You just figured out for me who was misbehaving. I'm not trying to get them in trouble. You understand that.
Oh no! I mean, we have access inside their mainframe. We actually watched them handle incident reports in real time. What the AI codes were, how they deploy it, whether they deploy it in astroturfing or they deploy it in scare tactics or they deploy just mass bot attacks. It's all in there. And I actually have a screenshot of one of the contractor. I mean, I have it all. I got inside SJ Turp's entire system.
Can you
I'm in it.
Can you help me out by sending me the link to the page for the CTI League? Because for some reason I can't find Matt Taibbi at the moment. I'm going to need this for what I have to get done.
Because he's shadow banned because of the war that he had with Elon over Substack, just search at M Taibbi. So MTAIBBI. And you'll find him.
There we go. Thank
All
you. I
right.
really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
So yeah, appreciate the
Okay.
time. I will
Yep.
look for that. And if I
All
come
right.
up with
Perfect.
something else that's helpful, I'll put the hand back up.
Absolutely. Also, go to America Missions page, go to their Substack, and search Disarm Framework. Once we had their GitHub, they wrote up an article on it on their Substack, and they have all this stuff there too. That give you a shortcut as well. So, Jill, I know it's getting late. I know you're a mom. You've been doing it all day, and this has obviously consumed a lot of your life. So I appreciate the time that you've given us, and I really appreciate you coming on and explaining exactly what's going on. There's nothing better than hearing from the person that is the plaintiff in the case. So I really appreciate you, Jill. But is there anything you want to leave people with? Anywhere they should follow you? Anything? Any final thoughts before you take off? Anything you'd like to say?
Oh, just thanks so much for following the case, Aaron. I mean, you and Tracy have just done a fantastic job of shining light on it and putting a spotlight on it where it needs to be. So I appreciate that so very much. And I just ask everybody if they would to just give me a follow. We are not as active on X as we are on Facebook. And really, that's one of the reasons why we have, you know, acts of ongoing harm in the declaration that I just filled out. But I love X so much, and I would love to have, a little bit more of a voice on this platform as well. So if you guys would just give us a follow. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Please, everyone go follow, just in case that she's shadow banned, at Health Freedom LA. That's Health Freedom Louisiana. So Health Freedom LA. That is the direct app. Please go give them a follow. If you could share their content, if it's interesting. Facebook makes sense to me with this, right? With what you're doing, your lane. That's where the moms are. That's where the parents
Right.
are, right? They're not.
Right.
They're not here over here with this super nerd Politico guy, right?
Right.
You're with the moms and the dads on Facebook. They're not over here. They come and listen to the space, and I know
Right.
that they take it back to their groups. I know that for a fact because they tell me, and so
Yeah.
that's great, and that's why I do these because it's like, okay, my
Yeah.
voice is big. My voice is a little bit bigger on this platform, and because I've been doing spaces for so long, I do have a little bit of an influence, and people know me. So
Right.
if like I'm putting something out, like I'm not putting out BS, and so it does travel far.
Yeah.
If you guys missed this space, in my highlights tab on my page, all these spaces and recordings are in there, so you can always access this stuff. But I really appreciate you taking
Yeah.
the time on the spot, on the fly, Jill. Because like I said, this is all just on the spot. Because Tracy texted me the PDF. I was like, more,
Yes.
you know. Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Aaron. It's so great
thanks,
talking
Jill.
to you guys.
It was great talking to you. Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Well, fantastic. That was great. I remember I started this space. I'm like, hey, let me see if I can get Miss Hines in here. I bet I can. Sure enough, she came in. I DM'd her, and like within 5 minutes, boom, she was here. I was like, oh, Jill's awesome. And you see why, and you see what they've been putting up with. Like these are everyday Americans. These are not like politicos and operatives. Like these are everyday Americans that got fed up and wanted their voices heard, and the entire weight of the federal government and intelligence communities came down on people like her and myself. I'm a normal guy. I'm not an operative. I have a normal job. Like I do this because I care about this country, and I don't want to argue about whether Kamala Harris is wearing a wired earpiece or not. That's irrelevant to me. That does not move the needle. This stuff moves the football down the field, and that's why I want to. That's why I spend so much time on it, because I believe that even if I disagree with you politically, I really want you to be able to say what you got to say. I would like the ideas to hit sunlight. I would like to be able to challenge ideas that hit the sunlight. And I think that we can come to a common consensus, even if we don't agree with each other 100%. I think the evidence is clear to me that when people like a Nicole Shanahan, which I disagreed with in 2022 in the work that she did down in Georgia in that 2022 midterm with Chuck Schumer, um, even I disagree with her on that. She's mea culpa on that. She's admitted it publicly, and she said, "Listen, I'm for team freedom, medical freedom, and anti-censorship." And I said, "Well, happens to be so am I. I just happen to be a Trump supporter." And then before we know it, Bobby, Nicole, and Tulsi joined over on our fight, and it really is the uniparty, the blob uniparty, versus everyday people, and we're winning. And so this stuff's important. So, Carolina, you joined us. Go ahead.
Hey, Trash. I'm usually not in a spot where I can speak, but I just want to thank you for bringing her. I didn't know you were going to get to her so fast, which I'm very impressed, and not surprised really, actually. So, this is something that I think people need to go back and go over and read and take a little bit of time to digest all the information that you have shared. The only thing you can do for us right now is just go to the purple pill, and then hit the retweet or the repost, whatever you want to call it, share the space, follow everybody that you've heard up here, and definitely, build an infrastructure for you to be able to follow, because the sense of community is the only way that you're going to be able to defeat censorship. If you don't have a grassroots movement, then join one that is already doing the work and isn't just out there grifting. So please support people like Trash and people like, Tracy Beans, who spent really quality time in the research that they do. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Tracy for sure. She was the one that put me on the Missouri v. Biden case early. This was early. I would say, oh, when was that? End of 2022, I guess, into 2023, and then May of 2023, Jill Hines here dropped the other group, I call them the Band-Aid Squad, the group that was doing the extra constitutional bidding of the government using taxpayer funds and outside funding sources, dark money, all those things to prevent you from saying what you wanted to say and from preventing people from hearing what you had to say. And so she joined the fight in May 2023. As you can tell, Jill's just a mom, dynamite woman, and they've done a lot of incredible work down in Louisiana with their Health Freedom Louisiana down there. So this is big time stuff. And listen, this group of three moms is taking on the Atlantic Council. Like, if you guys don't know, like they're taking on the Aspen Institute. They're taking on all these NGOs, basically taking on MITRE, which is the DoD cutout. But like as an example, listen to this. How many? I'm just going to name some of the names that are part of the Aspen Institute. So these are all like former CIA, NSA people. Um, there's Michael Hayden right there. Let's see who else they got. John McLaughlin. Um, who else do they have? I don't need to go to the Aspen Institute page. I used to know them all by heart, but as you can tell, I only have so much room for so many names to be able to call right off the top of my head without even blinking. But basically, it's a bunch of former spooks and chief spooks and global spooks. John Brennan. I mean, the worst of the worst, guys, is part of this Aspen Institute, and these three moms are taking them in a lawsuit through court because they're censoring. Like it's brave, and that's why we need to talk about this stuff. Um, so yeah, it's pretty nuts, and this goes back a long way, right? I mean, you got Michael Hayden talking about it back in 2011. right? This is when Obama basically took over, and Obama started really weaponizing the government and weaponizing the intelligence agencies against the American people. And all of these people came out of that. This is the Hillarys, the Obamas, that entire political blob. Never mind like the State Department and all those people and the CIA. It's just and these people are just absolute filth. And so yeah, they're involved in all of this stuff, and that's why they don't like me very much. I'm assuming that's why I'm constantly suppressed and shadow banned. Every now and then stuff will break through, but it's usually nothing about this stuff. Maybe it's because maybe it's just organic. Maybe people don't know about this stuff. They're like, I don't know what that is. I'm not touching it. I don't think so, because I break it down for it's easily understood by anybody, and everyone has felt it exactly the way that Jill laid out in the space of how it happened. Like it was like a switch in October, like everything overnight. And then here is the documentation. I went over all the proof from the other side of what she was feeling and what all of you have felt. I mean, Carolina, you've been dealing with this for years too, in the circles that you've been dealing with. I mean, maybe you can describe for the space a little bit about some of the stuff that you dealt with.
Well, the way that I ended up kind of hooking up and connecting with this network with Trash was kind of accidental. I didn't know that, he had been in the fight for a long time, doing incredible memes, incredible work. And so I was bringing all the doctors that I was training. I was more of a leadership level training the leaders that were being censored. And I think it was around the time that there was a lawsuit by about 6 major doctor figures that I was managing at the time. And I gave the advisory to the legal team that was suing Twitter at the time under Jack Dorsey. So what I did was provide the real time information and basically the blueprint of how this was being done, behind the scenes with the source, with the code, and how they were able to do it through just blatantly like literally cold-blooded, like, here's how we're going to do it, we're going to censor this person, and they would just kind of send it to Facebook, and they would send it to Twitter, and they would say that these people are doing this, that, and the other. And so I just kind of grabbed all the people that were fighting, and everybody was bringing me people. And so what I did, is I taught sometimes a room of 100 like doctors, lawyers, nurses, activists, of how to bypass the censorship and find the loophole. So my part of the deal was like, hey, it's happening. I know it's happening here. I can bypass it and show you the loopholes. But while these three moms are sitting there and taking on the actual giants and suing, that is the part that, I think is the most admirable. So for people like me, like Trash, and for many, many others that were doing our part on our end with our skill sets, basic research. So another thing that I did is I helped organize about 150 individuals to give all the data and documents to one of the two doctors that were going to shut down the mandates at the Supreme Court level. So it's a really complicated process, but it was happening. The problem is that we were being gaslit, right, Trash? I think when you and I connected, you came into my space, and I think I was about to bring Dr. Schultz and Dr. Urso um, into a big scenario where, for the first time, we were going to open the debates. And I think Matt Wallace and I were coordinating some big spaces with major doctors. I think it was like Simone Gold, and then like in the Mario space. This was after the transition, Elon Musk bought it. So we're like all excited, like, okay, are we really going to test the boundaries to see if we have freedom of speech? And we did. And so Trash, I think you pulled like 18 hours with me. It was insane. We didn't know each other. We had just met a couple hours in a space, and we went from like, seeing every spectrum of people that were calling us anti-vaxxers and gaslighting us and projecting and saying all sorts of horrible things. We had to fight, Team Halo, Media Matters, who else, Trash? I mean, everybody came down on Trash. Everybody came down on our network.
Yeah. Michael Teeter, Facts First USA, David Brock, Norm Eisen,
Oh,
even Mark Elias started
Peter
dipping his.
Hotez blocked us. Who else blocked us? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
insane.
Well,
I'm
and that
surprised
that
how she
space that we
didn't
were
block us.
preparing for was Roger Seaholtz. If you guys don't remember during COVID days, Roger Seaholtz was out of LA, if I'm not mistaken, and he had a protocol way before even ivermectin was really being talked about. He had this protocol, but he's always been a pro-vax guy, which never really made much sense to me. But Roger always would discuss in good faith at great length, and had I understood his conclusions. I didn't always agree with them, and he's far more intelligent than I am. And obviously, Roger Seaholtz is a really great doctor. He was pro-vax for some reason; it just didn't make sense to me. And then like Dr. Urso, and they were going to have this debate, and they did. And they debated for like 4 or 5 hours, and it was weird because Roger Seaholtz was like excited. He was like really excited. I was like, wait. So this guy that initially created a protocol that was actually helping some of his patients that were coming in on the alpha strain, and in the initial strains that was pretty deadly. I had alpha as well in 2020 because I was in Japan in January of 2020. I came back with the alpha strain. I was only sick for like a day and a half and I had a heavy chest for a week. It really didn't hit me too hard. But
Trash, I think it's an understatement to tell the audience how amazing you were and Vinny that day. Like, I don't even think we ate. I don't even think we took a break. We had like dozens of doctors. And I mean, you were like holding it down. I was like, hey, Trash, can you like manage the floor? I'm literally going to get on a call and start training like 3 or 4 doctors, making accounts for them, showing them how to unmic their mics and giving them like how to Twitter on Twitter Spaces. And then
yeah.
I would be on the floor, you know, managing things. And I'm like, Trash, can you like literally help these people? Like, it was insane. It took a whole team effort for us to bring the medical communication onto Twitter right after Elon Musk bought it, and it was successful. And I think it just marked the difference on how, you know, if we work together as a community and we do the work, all of us, every single one of you, by sharing, you know, following Trash, staying away from like the drama and all this stuff, and then just actually doing the work and focusing, you can do it. You can help us.
Yeah, and it was crazy too because like sometimes people like they get frustrated with me when I'm like I really don't want to talk about COVID or the jab right now. I'm sorry guys. I think they misunderstand um, how much time I spent on that with the doctors that were in the front lines making the arguments. So like sometimes when it comes up, I'm just like, oh, I can't anymore. Like I'm so burnt out on it. Like if there's anybody that was a fly on the wall through all the experts that were trying to work through it, it was me. I was there with like a panel full of doctors that had been working the front lines. We had Jim Thorpe, we had Dr. Lee, we had Roger Seaholtz, we had Urso, we had on and on and on. Molly Rutherford. We had on and on and on, or on and on.
You can
And
go back and listen to those spaces, guys. Like literally, you can hear us like, Dr. Thorpe, your turn. And like it was so frustrating because we're like having an actual conversation that was not able to be had literally
ever,
since 2020.
right,
People were not allowed to have this debate, and we brought it on to the American people, and it was insane. I mean,
right,
Trash literally sat there, you know, sometimes having to train people on how to host these things and how to speak and research. I mean, it was insane.
right. Yeah, that is my that's everything that I've done on this platform for the last 2 years. Sure, I get called fed a lot, or I don't know what I'm talking about, and I can assure you guys, I don't talk about anything I don't know what I'm talking about. As demonstrated in
Oh,
this
and he's
case
not
today.
monetized. I don't pay him. He
No,
doesn't pay me. We don't make
I'm
any
not paid by
money. We've
anybody.
never been paid a penny to do anything.
No, I mean,
That's why
I used to
we
have
fund this.
buy me a coffee. I think people donated like $250 worth of coffees over the last 2 years. Like I don't even list it in there anymore. Like it's just no, I've never made a single penny off of any of this.
I
But
put
my
my
point,
link for my birthday once and gave all the money to Dr. Kirk Moore so we can have a.
that's
I
right,
think we
Dr. Kurt.
fundraise.
So
Yeah, we
by the way,
fundraise at ten
fundraises for
thousand
Doc.
dollars.
Well,
Trash. Let
like,
me say this: we fundraised $10,000 in that one space. Remember, just
hmm
to be able to fight the federal government that kind of set him up and try to trap him, allegedly claiming they. Oh, sorry, I hear feedback, but it was insane.
yeah, I mean,
But we
allegedly
didn't
they
take any money.
yeah, allegedly, this is the doctor out of Utah that they are accusing of giving out saline shots instead of the vaccine for mandates. Again that they're accusing him of it. But either way, they've ruined his life. And so I remember doing that too. I'm saying I'll just say this. This is not a self praise thing. What I'm saying is that you can use your voice and like all the censorship stuff, all the lawfare stuff that I've been dealing with, I mean, how much time did I spend with all the J6ers forever? How much time did I mean, this is something, these are all the epicenter of what's going on in this country, and censorship and lawfare has been my lane for some time. Um, and that's what we're doing here. And that's why I had Jill from Health Freedom in here, Jill Hines, part of the Hines v. Stamos case. We broke this all down. I mean, guys, this is the stuff that's really going on. The problem is that trying to figure out a way to boil it down so it's very bite-sized pieces and easy to understand. I think I do a pretty good job of that. But it seems like it would be very in the weeds, but it's very much what's really happening. You know, it's not what Fox News is arguing with MSNBC over or whatever. It's nonsense, right? But this is really what's going on. So it's been a wild ride the last, what is it, 2024. So it's been since May of 2022. I finally came back to the platform. This is all I've done. John, go ahead.
Sorry for the wait on that. So you mentioned something about there not being a law regarding one piece of this, and that might be partially true, right? Or that might be true, but the problem is that while there might not be a law, there is federal precedent regarding these
Correct.
issues. And
Correct.
my case from when I was still under the age of 18, which stacks on top of, I think, Matthew Shepard's case. The ruling in that case, if you read the ruling, says that certain behaviors that violate the Constitution are situations where just like when you can impeach someone, right? Because certain behavior is impeachable, it backs up in federal precedent in that case that certain behaviors are fireable offenses for anyone, even government officials who may not want to be, fired, might want to make some law that says they can't be fired. It overrides. And that is one of the reasons I'm important as a movement / plaintiff in this case.
Yeah, the more the merrier too. Um, it's been guys, I'm tired. Like just like a lot of us out here, we're tired, but obviously we're not going to give up. And so like this is the thing. Like a lot of people would never do any of this if they weren't getting paid. But I got to be honest with you. Like I can't. Once you see this stuff, you can't unsee it. And I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try somehow. And there's people out there with large platforms that are doing very well. Mike Benz, he's done great work, and he's got a big platform, and good for him. There's some other people that already had large platforms that eventually grab onto this stuff. Um, but I'm more in a position of being kind of an aggregator where I'm like, okay, these are all people doing work. Let me pull all the good stuff here and like let's put it in an easy to digest like mind map essentially. Like this part is this part is that, this part is that. And I think that's important for people. I wish more people could take the time to come over here on X and get engaged with this stuff, because if they saw what we saw and see and talk about every day, with receipts, by the way. Everything I'm talking about here, I've already provided. Go to my highlights tab; it's all there. You can find the spaces about Missouri v. Biden. You can find this space. Uh, there's content all around this stuff. Anything I'm talking about with any of the names, all the receipts are there. You can go find it in my highlights tab. I've got many threads. It's all there, but a lot of people don't have the time to go over this. So we have to fight in the information war hub, and this is where it's at, unfortunately. And
Crash, I sent you a DM with all the documents and stuff from when you did the space with Tracy Beans. Check on the DMs and see if any of that stuff you want to put here or share in this purple pill, because
let's
it's
see.
I went as
There's a
far
lot.
back as I could. I know. I just scraped everything that had to do with the case and sent it to you.
God, I've been talking about so much.
I know, it's insane. I sent you, I don't know, it's close to like 40 items.
Holy
Or
cow! Yeah,
I
these are
just
all
grabbed
my posts.
everything.
These are all my posts going back to
You're
like,
welcome.
yeah, I know
nothing
it's
nothing
crazy.
gets past me, guys. I'm sorry. I
No, it's
document
just
everything.
crazy. Yeah,
Look
so
at that.
everything associated with what we're talking about here, Hines v. Stamos or Missouri v. Biden, she's got a lot of it here. Got all the Supreme Court
That's
opinions.
the trash discourse files that I have documented. Oh my
Yeah,
god,
well,
I love it.
this is just the Missouri v. Biden stuff. This is not even all of it. This is
Oh
just
no, that's not all
that.
of it. No.
No.
But
Well,
since we're covering that this part of the case, I just wanted to keep it relevant.
yeah, no, I don't know how much longer I'm going to go with this. I've been going since 6:30, so about an hour and a half, and this has been really a as usual when I do these spaces, it's very info rich. I don't like these spaces to go on too long, so when people go back, they're like, "Oh, I can listen to that for an hour and a half," um, and it's digestible. Like when I used to do like these 3 to 4, 5 hour spaces, there's no way people are going to get through that, and it's so information rich. It's just like this is entirely too dense. So I try to shorten them up a little bit. But so basically, the whole point of this space was that there was a motion today where the Aspen Institute tried to remove themselves from this Hines v. Stamos case. I had Jill Hines in here, the plaintiff in the case, against the Aspen Institute, against CIA Renee DiResta, against Alex Stamos, the Election Integrity Partnership, the Virality Project. So Election Integrity Partnership, EIP, was the election stuff censoring. Virality Project was the COVID stuff censoring. Kate Starbird. Oh, yeah, Kate Starbird. Okay, hang on. So Kate Starbird, I played the clip earlier of how she created that machine, that algorithm, that system to detect virality of content. My name pops up when I search all these people's names. My posts always pop up. It's just my posts. It's so crazy. Oh, it's so nuts. Hold on.
I know, I love it.
Like if you
It's like,
search,
you know, if people hate the fact that you're like a great badass researcher, this should really put it in their, you know, ribs.
I don't know if you were here for it, but like Kate Starbird, or not Kate Starbird, Renee DeResta wrote about me in her book. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right. So in March 24th of this year, out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere, we know why, because Kate Starbird, working alongside with Aspen Institute and the Election Integrity Partnership, she is complaining about flagging of misinformation, and only 30% were actually listened to. She was on 60 Minutes. Listen to this.
Kate Starbird says the social media platforms also often ignored the researchers' suggestions.
The statistics I've seen are just for the Twitter platform, but my understanding is that they responded to about 30% of the things that we sent them. And I think on the majority of those, they put labels.
But just a third.
But just the third, yeah.
And do you suspect that Facebook was the same?
Oh, yeah.
Sir, that's not true, sir. Leslie Stahl, having a good old time about they only took down 30% of my requests, but they put account labels on it as well. That you have no business flagging any of our content. Who are you to determine what's in misinformation? Well, Dan Bongino, there was an article that came out March 28th of this year, and it was from Reclaim the Net. By the way, if you guys aren't following Reclaim the Net HQ, great account. They do great reporting. But this report was interesting. I'm going to play this clip as well. It's relevant to what I'm talking about here. And my comment on his, I don't necessarily remember this entire clip, but obviously it was important. That's why I shared it. But as I said, as Uncle Dan Bongino accurately breaks down, the censorship industrial complex would like to censor more ahead of the election period. Reclaim the Net accurately reports. Why was Kate Starbird paraded out on CNN, the clip I just played? Because the EIP Virality Project has rebranded under a new name as the Center for an Informed Public. And at the time, Missouri v. Biden was standing in their way. Now, Hines v. Stamos is definitely standing in their way. But listen to this.
I want to read this. This type of brazen behavior, where now the federal government, right now, the Biden administration is colluding with social media companies again, could mean that the ruling apparatus is sure of itself and the ability to get away with pretty much anything. And that it's not confident Biden can get reelected in making risky and perhaps desperate moves. Listen to this and tie it to what I just told you. The U.S. intelligence community is ramping up work with tech companies ahead of November elections as cybersecurity professionals search for new ways to combat foreign threats to the American electoral system that appeared unthinkable 4 years ago. Listen to me. We all together, the crew, the posse here, listen to Dan. Listen to Uncle Dan for a second. My uncle? No, I won't see him for that, but sorry. Nothing the left does is by accident. Nothing. All of a sudden, they want to start censoring again. They've got a problem, though. They've got this Supreme Court case, Murthy versus Missouri, where they were colluding with tech companies on COVID and other stuff, and they got exposed. So what happened? They needed another excuse because they want to keep censoring. How do I know? I just read it to you in the Reclaim the Net piece. Hey, man, we got to censor. We got a bunch of foreigners trying to steal the election again. And as if on cue, throw it up again, a New York Times article. As if on cue, look at what drops. New York Times, China, they're coming for us. They're colluding with Trump to steal the election. Look at that. Look at that.
And so what I'll say is this. This whole tenant media, Russia narrative, guys. I know some of the people over at Tenet. Matter of fact, you guys will probably remember I used to host spaces with Taylor Hanson on Tenet Media Spaces. I was a co-host. Why? Because apparently I found myself my job on Twitter to be a Twitter host. And Taylor Hanson is a on the ground reporting guy. He goes to protests. He films a protest. He films in person. He doesn't know how to run a Twitter space. So Taylor asked me to help him co-host and run spaces because I had experience with it. So I did for free. And they were under the Tenet Media umbrella. What happened? Well, DOJ, the weaponized DOJ, all of a sudden says, no. We're not accusing anyone in Tenet Media of doing anything. It's just these two Russians, and they lied to content creators like Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and Taylor Hanson and all these people. But also, these were people that were funded by Russia Today, and they were putting Russian narratives into the public. Although it says in the indictment that none of these people knew, and there was no content moderation or request being done by the people that started Tenet Media to begin with. They just licensed their show once a week to them. And so it's weird that I'm going over this now because in the context of September 11th, not March 28th, when I originally was talking about this, that they're doing exactly that. And what did we see a few days ago? Christopher Wray going out and telling Russia to stop it. And they put out this bulletin through the FBI about meddling in our elections and all the misinformation and blah, 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 and Russia again. They're firing up the narrative. The censorship has been happening. It's been happening on this platform. I'm completely banned and suppressed. I'm sorry, but you can't tell me that like some of my average posts that don't talk about any of this stuff in detail, you know, reach 300,000, 500,000, a million people. But then anything that's really worthy of note, it dies once it hits a certain threshold. Or like none of my posts get seen. I'm shadow banned all the time. It's because it's still happening because there's still. If you guys remember the case with Pavel Durov of Telegram, and I have my beef with Telegram. You guys know what my beef is there because I do a lot of work with Becca on militant accelerationism, which is all that's happening on Telegram, otherwise known as Terrorgram. But again, they're blaming him for it when they have end-to-end encryption with the DMs in these private groups, so he didn't have access to it anyway. But so they came to him, if you guys remember the Tucker Carlson interview, and they said, hey, you're in DC the same time we are. Hey, we just want you to install this toolkit on your algorithm. We just want you to install this toolkit, which is essentially a backdoor where the intelligence agencies, global intelligence agencies, not just the U.S., had access and a backdoor into their platform. Well, Twitter 1. Like this may be Twitter 2.0, and they may be making improvements to the algorithm. It's still skeleton is Twitter 1.0. Therefore, these toolkits still exist, which means these groups that I'm talking about don't like me talking about it. Therefore, their backdoors are still being used. Like I hope that's clear. People are blaming Elon. I'm not blaming Elon. People are blaming Elon or Linda Yaccarino that they're hiring these people back. No, they're not. It's the backdoors in the original Twitter 1.0 code that already had access to these global intelligence groups. There's nothing he can do short of burning it all down, being closed for however long it takes to build an entire new algorithm. Instead, they have to step by step migrate over to a new one. Anyway, I digress. My point is that it's still very much active. It's still very much there, and there's not a lot I can do about it because I can't prove it. I'm not inside in these intel communities, but I know through context clues and everything that I've been reporting on and talking about for years in court documents and everything I've shown you that it's absolutely true. And so, oh, that's awesome. I'm showing up. I'm showing up on people's home screen with my raccoon tuxedo, glowy eyes with our space. I love that how it shows up on Apple. That's great. I show up on people's when we're having our spaces on their screen inside their vehicle. People take a picture and post it. I love it. So that's Ash907 posting that. Shout out to you. But again, like this is what they're doing. Matter of fact, here I'll play it. So I've got. All right, I played Kate Starbird. I played the initial Kate Starbird clip that I played. I've also played the Alex Stamos clip. I got Glenn Greenwald here, but he's saying he's going to say the same thing that I'm already saying, so I don't even need to bother with it. But let's check this out. So this is Pavel Durov, who is Russian. He was the guy that originally created Russia's version of Facebook. And then he moved to Dubai. He got out of Russia and he created Telegram. But this was him on Tucker Carlson not long before French authorities arrested him, and they're trying to charge him with terrorism. And listen, let me be clear about something. To be very clear about something, if you follow me at all, do you know that BX_on_X and myself are constantly covering these militant accelerationists? These are terrorists. These are real domestic terrorists, and the FBI is making arrests. And a lot of people are saying, "No, it's the feds. You guys are stupid." Like, no, like these are we're watching them right now. Like we're in there. We watch them. I mean, I can send screenshots, but I don't want them to know which groups we're inside of. We watch them. She watches them. There's an entire team of people watching them. And so, like, it's very real. I've had spaces on this. If you want to go back and listen to what the heck I'm talking about, go to my highlights tab, look for accelerationism, anything tagged with that. Go listen to that space. If you're a parent, you need to, and you need to yesterday. And it's going to be terrifying. Don't get me wrong. But I'm trying to find the clip. Let's see. Hang on. This was I didn't watch the whole thing because I didn't need to. It's like they're explaining what tech CEOs have to deal with. I'm like, yeah, I know. I talk about this a lot. Okay, here it is. It's about 2 minutes and 38 seconds. This is what we are all suffering from with censorship on Twitter 1.0 and has nothing to do with somebody internally. It may be, there might be a content moderator here or there, but like it's not at an industrial size scale and siloing that's happening. It's coming from outside the house, not inside the house. Listen to this.
The FBI, the security agencies, wherever we came to the US. So to give you an example, last time I was in the US, I brought an engineer that is working for Telegram, and there was an attempt to secretly hire my engineer behind my back by cybersecurity officers or agents, wherever they are called.
The US government tried to hire your engineer?
That's my understanding. That's what he told me.
To write code for them or to break into Telegram?
They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated to the Telegram's app, on the client side, and they were trying to persuade him to use certain open source tools that he would then integrate into the Telegram's code that, in my understanding, would serve as backdoors.
Would allow the US government to spy on people who use Telegram?
The US government, or maybe any other government, because a backdoor is a backdoor regardless of who is using it.
That's right.
And
that's a little surprising to hear. Maybe it's not surprising, it's offensive. You're confident that happened?
Yes. There is no reason for my engineer to make up the stories. Also because I personally experienced similar pressure in the US. Whenever I would go to the US, I would have two FBI agents greeting me at the airport, asking questions. One time I was having my breakfast at like 9 a.m. and the FBI showed up at my house that I was renting. And that was quite surprising. And I thought, we're getting too much attention here. It's probably not the best environment to run.
Why had you committed a crime?
No, they were interested to learn more about Telegram. They knew I, left Russia. They knew what we were doing, but they wanted details. And my understanding is that they wanted to establish a relationship to, in a way, control Telegram better. I understand they were doing their job. It's just that for us running a privacy-focused social media platform, that probably wasn't the best environment to be. And we want to be focused on what we do, not on government relations of that sort.
Yeah, and again, listen, you don't have to believe me. I'm not here to simp for feds or anything else. I can tell you that I hate the seventh floor of the FBI. I can tell you that I do know of good people inside these intelligence agencies, but the administrations are permocrats. They lean Democrat. They live in the D.C. area and Northern Virginia area, and they do not like us. They do not like me. They do not like our politics. They don't like what we fight for and freedom and having freedom of speech. Oh my God, they don't like that.
You can name me trash. You can say they don't like
Well, they don't
Carolina.
like you either.
They
Right? That's what I'm
can
saying.
accuse I'm a Fed 24/7.
They don't like us at all. I get called Fed all the time. I don't really care. But I can also tell you that working with like Becca on this stuff, and the militant accelerationism. Let me tell you something. Specifically, these groups, they are grooming young children into very, very disgusting, horrific type stuff. There's child extortion networks, self-harm, harming of others. It's actually, if you guys remember, do you guys remember the mass shooting at the Tops grocery store in Buffalo, New York? You remember when he went in and shot up a bunch of anyone brown, he shot up and killed? Well, we know for a fact now that he was working inside one of these Telegram groups on Telegram, for a fact. They have the names, they have the people that groomed him, who convinced him of. They are already, they're looking for like neurodivergent, on the spectrum, mentally ill people already, and then they groom them, and then like, and accelerationism is not political at all. It's not Republican or Democrat. It's not even Fed. It's foreign governments, foreign bad actors, people that want to see just the West and the world burn so they can build anew in some kind of neo-fascist type thing. And it's just to accelerate the downfall of the West. So mass shootings are a part of it, self-harm's a part of it, child abuse material is part of it, Satanism's part of it, neo-Nazi stuff is part of it. It's all different. Whatever flavor these kids will be susceptible to, they then groom them down this path, or they extort them. They get them to send them, you know, embarrassing images of them.
Trash, I think you helped me with also the Church of Satan was having a huge convention. I
I
don't even
remember
remember what
that,
city
yeah.
it was.
And it's not
Insane.
even the churches.
Like we
Yeah,
literally
I
had,
know, but they were
yeah,
coming
go
after
ahead.
us. It was so funny. But it's not even the Church of Satan that I'm mentioning. These are people that are not real Satanists. It's fake Satanists. Yes, there's some real ones. It's whatever flavor is attractive to these people, that will go out and commit these things. But I can tell you that there are some people, I know for a fact, because there are cases through DOJ and through people that are working in the field at FBI that are trying to take these people down, and they're honestly doing it. And there's been 7 arrests of these accelerationists over the last year, which is, I guess, good, but it's still not enough. There was just one the other day. It's weird one. Anyway, I don't want to get on accelerationism. I have plenty of spaces on that. But my point is this line here is where I'm struggling on censorship, because that's illegal activity, right? That's not legal protected speech. And the problem is that we see people like planning an event, but they have to be specific on their time and date of when they're going to do something that then law enforcement can move in and make an arrest. And the line, believe it or not, is pretty broad, and it's nowhere near what we talked about in the beginning of the space with the government censorship. It's quite way far away from there. Just saying you're going to shoot up a club, that's the government can't do anything about that. Technically, now granted, again, this is the other side of this story where the line is actually quite far, where they can actually create a criminal case, because you can't do pre-crime, right? You can't have minority report stuff yet, no matter how horrific this stuff is. So by Pavel refusing to put a backdoor into Telegram, um, they're coming after him and they're arresting him and charging him with all this stuff because they won't allow them to have a backdoor into the platform and break the privacy that he'd promised, regardless of the actions. It's kind of like a Ross Ulbricht Silk Road thing. Although Ross Ulbricht's a little bit more foggy than what people want to admit. Whether it's truthful or not that he actually did try to commit try to put out a hit or not, I don't know. But either way, it's the same kind of thing. And so this is the opposite end of free speech. And this is why I wanted to create this contrast at the end of the space. Because we were faced with this question. What do we think about this? Like, what do we think about being able to groom children into mass casualty events? One guy, Butcher, who is a Georgian national, a lot of this is coming out of Eastern Europe, this Georgian national guy, the country, not the, not the state, his name was Butcher, and he thought he was grooming a young person into dressing up as like Santa Claus, and he taught him how to make ricin and ricin poisoning to lace candy, dress up like Santa Claus around Christmas, and hand it all out to minority children in New York City. Turned out he was talking to an FBI agent, and they took him down. He's right now arrested and being detained and held in Moldova, and is going to be extradited back to the U.S., and he faces 20 plus years. But that's an arrest, and that's an accelerationist that took this guy down. This guy has written material that is, it's called the Hater's Handbook, and it's scary shit. So this is the other side of the free speech conversation and censorship. And frankly, I think that I'm still on the side of no censorship. Let that stuff flourish. Educate fusion centers and FBI and law enforcement and parents about this stuff, and have them take the appropriate action um, when it's warranted and necessary, and be aware of it. Because if you start censoring and suppressing it, and then you'll never see these people, and the violence and all the nasty stuff will ratchet up. Instead, being able to get sunlight on it, I think, is the best policy. But the intelligence communities and governments see it differently, kind of like I laid out in this space. So I presented both sides of the free speech argument here, and I think no matter how horrific and disgusting and terrible, you guys can't wade through all this stuff. I've looked at it, and it's really bad. But you can go back and listen to my spaces. I had Becca with me. We always have these spaces. It's really informative. She puts out mini documentaries that explains all of this stuff. You guys can go look for yourself with receipts, and it's all there. So that's both sides of the spectrum of free speech and censorship, and what that question really remains. And I think that holding a platform CEO accountable for pushing free speech and privacy and end-to-end encryption, and refusing governments' backdoor toolkits into their algorithm is the right move, no matter how horrific it is. There's individual crimes being committed, then individually they need to be taken down. But I don't think censorship's the answer. So, anything you guys want to add before I close it down?
I just want to thank you for being as relentless and as bold and it's like, motivating as you are. I've been through situations where you're like, oh, well, just F him. And I'm like, all right, let's just get back to work. And, it's not. It's not something that I say lightly, but you and many of the people that I've seen here in the spaces have carried us to some really, really heavy stuff where, bad, real, and I'm talking about like really major bad actors have, you know, uh, cooked up some of the worst like slander campaigns against Trash, against me, against many others. And I just want to ask the audience, that if you have been listening to any of us in the past, what, year, 2 years, and you understand what we're trying to do not be detracted to continue to support. And so I really appreciate, Trash, that you're still doing this, and it's just really motivating because then it's all worth it to me. And shout out, I Meme is down there too. She knows her fair share of censorship for sure.
For sure. I just got doxxed again. I changed my phone number a few months back, and the same person was.
Oh, that's why you don't have access to seeing what I'm sending you on WhatsApp. I'm sending you like all the mass immigration in Europe. I'm sending you all
Oh yeah,
kinds of
probably
crap.
not. Probably not. I
I don't
changed my
even know
number a
what
few months back
number.
because I got doxxed and smeared and lied about, and then it quieted down.
Oh,
And then
again?
just
Again?
last week, yeah, again, my new number got doxxed. Now those,
It's like an every week
yeah,
thing. You're gonna change your number
I get
every
attacked
week?
all the time. No, no, no. They had to take the post down. I don't know if they're suspended or they just had to take the post down, but they're gone. So
I tell you, the DNC has a lot of money to come after just us little
I know.
people. I mean, we're really not that big of a accounts. We're really not people that are trying to just go and make a name or anything like that. We see what we're seeing, we recognize it, and we just want others to be aware of what's actually being done when it comes to the freedom of speech, our constitutional rights. It's simple.
Well, what's funny about it is that I it's what's really funny about it is like I don't care if you dox me. Like I'm not trying to remain anonymous. Like to be clear, I put my name out there. I've met up with several people, including you, Carolina. You have photos of me with you when we had pizza with you and your kids. Um, I-
Yeah, well, I say spaghetti because these people will probably cook up a story saying we didn't actually have pizza. We had
yeah,
pasta. But you already
yeah.
know how
But
they always.
I'm saying that like people know who I am. They know my name. They even know who I work for. The thing is that for some reason, Trash Discourse and the Raccoon branded so well that when I tried to switch to my name with my picture, people were like, I mean, whatever, you look good, but we really like the raccoon and like the Trash Discourse. It branded so well that now I can't just have a public.
Well, it created chaos for me, Trash, because now I had to sweat all the ladies away. I remember we almost raffled
Yeah.
you. We had to create
Yeah.
an entire
Yeah.
weekend, like to spend with
Yeah, I
Trash.
remember. Yeah. And so like, I'm not trying to be anonymous as if I'm hiding from something. I'm literally stuck in the really good branding that I've done with it that I can't now because everybody's like, no, 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 no. I like the mystery. I like the raccoon. And what's really funny about it was in the height of all that, everybody was like I get tagged in raccoon stuff all day, right? And like they would go out and search for like raccoon gifs and like memes to like reply and post to me. And then what ended up happening was their algorithms of their other social media accounts like Instagram or Facebook, their algo would detect that they were interested in raccoons, and all they saw all over Instagram, Facebook, Twitter was nothing but raccoon stuff. And so it like did like a triple branding thing where if anybody talks about raccoons on X, I get tagged in it constantly, or they tell me like you've taken over my algorithm because I search for memes or a video. Like it was that much. So that's the brand. That's why the branding has gone so hard that I can't even if I want to now. I tried switch it around. So I'm not trying to be anonymous. That's why I don't care if they do it. It's just like
Timing. I think she's trying her
okay.
mic.
Oh, I'm just listening and I'm like thinking, oh my God, they doxed you and I didn't get the info so I can hot text you at 2 in the morning. I'm so disappointed in myself. But I do.
I'll give you the
I
number.
get okay. So I'll text him like in 2 hours. Listen, but Trash, I know what you're talking about. I was at some point wanted to change my picture, go back to normal to myself, you know, after losing so many accounts, and I was like carrying like a cartoon picture of myself, and I wanted to go back, but people got so used to this picture. Then, I did kind of like a poll, like, should I change it or not? It went like 50-50, and some like people who followed me longer said no, don't you change it. So I said fuck it, I'll just leave it, and now I'm stuck with it, just but you're at least you can get funny memes and stuff. Nobody's making memes with my freaking thing, you know it just doesn't fit. Just you know what I went with, it doesn't go well with anything. So you're lucky.
Well, yeah, it was funny too because like so one of the tricks that you can do if you're noticing that you are heavily censored, suppressed, or banned is if you change your profile picture when they re-verify you, whatever was on your account gets kicked off. And man, I rock it for like 3 days. My engagement is through the roof, and then they all catch on that I'm back, and it's like brr, 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 back down to nothing. And but the other part of that too is when I do that, then no one recognizes me. They're like, I didn't recognize you. You had your photo changed. So I'm literally stuck with this. There's nothing I can do at this point. I just have to stay with it. So
Yeah,
it is what it is.
I think maybe I'll start. I was thinking of doing slowly, slowly, start changing like metamorphose, like I start changing the face slowly, slowly, with the hat on, to leave the hair, and slowly, slowly start changing the face until I change to my face. Do you understand? So people start getting
Yeah.
used to it. But I will have to work it, and it's like, but you know what drives me crazy? I was thinking that it actually is doable because people's minds will start changing. Do you understand? Like with the picture, but you know what it is? They're fucking verifying this stuff. I don't have time for this bullshit. you know,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
already
No.
kicked me out a few times, and I was like, come on, like showing the ID and all this bullshit, and
Yeah.
actually, somebody was trying to hack me. I'm not like nobody. And a few times recently, somebody was trying to hack my account,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they didn't get through. And I'm still curious if the channel, I never saved it when they doxed me. If I'm still up on Telegram, if this channel is still up.
Oh yeah, no, like yeah, no, all my docs and everything that originated here, and I know the two people that were behind it, and one of them 100% was an intelligence contractor because I know that she was in the past, and we're sure that she still is. Number two, the second person was a infamous known troll for years, who also has taken government contracts, and I'm pretty sure he took a government contract to dox and smear me as well because we were talking about a lot of things that I was talking about in this space earlier today. I'm pretty sure they were paid to do it, and my stuff's all over.
Is it the same one that did my doxing? You think?
No, no, no.
No.
But they're known to each other. I can tell you that.
But but imagine they're going after me like I'm
Yeah,
nobody.
like right.
Like
But
I'm
well,
a
I mean,
fucking. I'm like,
well,
ma'am,
I mean,
New York City. Do you know?
right. I mean, I guess I know why people come after me because I go after Renee DiResta and Alex Stamos and the Aspen Institute, and I go after NSA and CISA, and I go after like the Shelby Pearsons of the world at the Office of Director of National Intelligence. Like I piss people off. I mean, to the point where Renee DiResta.
Yeah, Trash, but you punch up,
Yeah, I
okay?
punch
And I
up.
think what happens
Yeah.
is that these people that are up, when they do that, they realize that you're powerful and you're punching up, and people are actually catching on to see, wait a minute, this person is punching up and it's actually tracking, attracting momentum. So then what they do is they send this guys or girl,
Yep.
whatever,
It was both.
honeypotters, whatever you want to
Oh,
call
I
them,
don't want to talk about.
and then
No, don't even talk about all the honeypots. Oh my God.
I know,
There's been like at least
I know.
7 that I've been able to identify that
I
came.
swat them from
My
Trash, guys. You
God.
should know that.
Oh,
They've even come to me like, please, like, hook me up one day,
it's
like anything. I'll do
it's
anything.
insane.
But what I was trying to get at, Trash, with that is that, a lot of these guys, when they get sent to do this type of things, a lot of really good innocent people get
Yep.
trampled in the way because they put misinformation and they put, hit pieces in doxing and things like that, that genuine people that are here listening to our work, feel afraid, and they disengage from, doing something with us,
Yep.
like researching, posting, commenting, and following, or even retweeting, because they get caught into the emotion of, wait a minute, oh, these are bad guys, oh, these are evil, and then that's a win for them. That's a win for the
Yeah.
enemy on the other side. So be discerning of what you're hearing and seeing, and don't be afraid to like DM us and ask us straight up.
Yeah, like
I mean, we're
let me give you an
pretty.
example. So the same week that CIA Renee DiResta releases her book, if you guys, again, if you've only joined this space and you don't know what I'm talking about, Renee DiResta was part of the 2-part team at the Stanford Internet Observatory, running the Election Integrity Partnership, the EIP, and then thus became the Virality Project. Renee DiResta, who used to work for the CIA with Alex Stamos, which is the entire premise of the space that I'm talking about here, the same week that she releases her book, and I'm going to read where she wrote about me in her book here just a second. The New York Times came out and they tried to conflate me with my buddies over at Oversight Project on some stuff that Anthony at Muckraker was doing with illegals voting. Anyway, long story boring. It was like it was coordinated because like New York Times talked about it. What was the other one? I think Daily Dot and one other one was talking about all that stuff. It was conflated, and then right here, Renee DiResta, Miss Censorship Queen herself, this is her chapter in her book, A Different Form of Harassment. She says by talking about her and identifying her and reading her own words and playing her own video clips and mentioning her name as part of the censorship apparatus from 2020 that we all know about, is a different form of harassment. Listen to this. By 2023, having studied disinformation and propaganda campaigns for years, I was accustomed to facing harassment from the occasional online mob or being smeared by the occasional hyper-partisan or state-controlled media outlet. But then, on March 2nd, 2023, Matt Taibbi entered the Twitter space voice chat room run by the anonymous man with a raccoon face profile picture to talk about his latest Twitter findings with fans. And in that chat room was also Mike Benz. Yes, me, Matt Taibbi, and Mike Benz talking about censorship. Ooh, it's so crazy. I know they hate us for this. We've been doing it for 2 years. Anyway, Trash Discourse and his space entitled Breaking, FBI releases their cyber plan with Kyle Seraphin and American Mission Twitter Spaces, March 2023, 8:59 a.m. Internet Archive. And she actually put a link in her book to that space so people could go listen to it. And I'm just like, we're not harassing you. I'm not messaging you. You have locked down your account. We can't see anything that's on your account. You have to request. Go look up Renee DiResta. You have to request to even follow her because of what we did. She locked her account down. Michael Teeter, the head of the 65 Project, who the people who were going after the lawfare apparatus with David Brock, that I got that dude to exit Twitter altogether when I exposed that he was actually the filing attorney for Ray Epps' lawsuit against Fox News last year. That dude deleted his whole fucking account. At the same time, while I was doing that thread and holding that space, they scrubbed him from the Facts First USA David Brock website. This is the CNN talking point that worked alongside with like Ian Sams of the White House, where they would give the talking points out to the journalists about what they should say. This is Facts First USA. While that space was going on, while I was going over this thread that I had put together at that time, this is back June of last year, I think. They scrubbed him from the website. He deleted his X profile, and they scrubbed it. But fortunately, I had an archive, so his face is still on the website. He can't get away from it. This is the same 65 project that went after anybody that was standing up for Trump and challenging election challenges in 2020. Most notably, you guys will know, Jenna Ellis. This is the same group that were getting attorneys disbarred from their respective bars in their states for even raising election challenges. That same Michael Teeter. And these people came after me as well. And he worked alongside with like Norm Eisen and Crew, most notably for Crew. You can think about the Colorado Supreme Court decision where the Supreme Court tried to remove Trump from the ballot in Colorado. That was Crew. And so like all these people that I go after, they all don't fucking like me, and all of them have access to the toolkits on this algorithm. That's why I can't grow. It's why I can't do anything. It's because I name the names and give their receipts, and they don't like it. But they're calling it a new form of harassment. Bitch, y'all are doing it. I'm just telling everybody about it. And so anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that's the kind of
Well, the
yeah.
trash, they're doing it to you,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
we're
for
just
sure.
trying to defend us.
Yeah, for sure.
They're doing it to
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
So, okay, we're being gaslit and projected on for basically merely just not even complaining, but exposing that they're doing shenanigans to us, and we're the bad guys.
Yeah.
We're the ones, this is like gaslighting projection 101. Like
Well,
insane.
like I had Jill Hines in here earlier, right? Jill Hines, she's the Hines v. Stamos litigant. She's the plaintiff. Her and Jim Hoft, Gateway Pundit. And this is the same, NGOs like the EIP, the Virality Project, the same cutout groups that are funded through the Pentagon, DOD, through like, Graphica and MITRE for censoring and running psyops on the American people. Listen, I bet people think we're crazy. I probably sound crazy to people that are not initiated, but I have all the receipts for it. I've given you guys. You can look at it for yourself. You can tell me where I'm wrong, but like when I watch an incident go into the dashboard of the disarm framework and a contractor grabs it, they pull up their menu of what they're going to do, and are they going to astroturf it? Meaning it's Adam Kinzinger that comes in and says, "Oh, Donald Trump got wasted in the debate," and then they have this fake, phony engagement. It's all done through these systems and these dashboards because we're inside of it. We've watched them handle the incident reports. Why? Because it was publicly funded. They have to publicly list their GitHub, their tools, because it's open source, because it's publicly funded. So if you know where to look and you know the names of who you should be looking for, if it's funded by public funds like through DoD or Pentagon, through Graphica, then that toolkit needs to be open source and public. So you just go to SJ right? SJ British Army Intelligence Officer. I tell you what, do this for me right now. Go to GitHub and search SJ Terp. And when you do that, you're going to find her GitHub. And in that GitHub, you're going to see something called the Disarm Framework. Go in and take a look. Matter of fact, I tell you what, I will even do you guys one solid, and I will put the screenshots from inside their hub, and you can tell me what you're looking at. I don't need to tell you what you're looking at. And if you come to a different conclusion than I do, please let me know. I'm going to start off with a basic screenshots. There's going to be 4 of them. And then contained below those 4 are going to be inside, or there's going to be 3. And then a reply to that is going to be a screenshot inside the Disarm Framework hub. And you tell me what we're looking at here. And you can take a look for yourself. If you don't believe me, I guess I could play the videos of them saying that we were successful in Turkey using this psychological operation, influence operation apparatus in Turkey to convince people in Turkey that it was not ISIS that did a bombing. It was actually the Kurds that did it. I can play that video for you. They're bragging about it themselves. But just go ahead and take a look at it. I'll put it down here because we're inside their framework still because it's open source. And I had access to her GitHub. This is the same British Army intelligence officer that had a meeting in the 2017 Obama White House, along with like David Brock and Media Matters people and all these people that have been waging war on us for years. Let's see here. All right, so I put those first 3 screenshots. You tell me what that says.
I pinned it on the top for if you guys want to do it yourself. Try to repeat if you want how they the search.
Yeah, so if you go to GitHub, you can download the app on your phone. You can go to GitHub on the computer, and just search SJTerp, or I think it's Bodica. Hang on. All right, I'm looking for these screenshots. Let me go to my GitHub. I think it's Bodica. I think is what it is. Give me 1 second. God, I gotta sign in. Hang on. Sorry, I haven't been in there in a while because I just. Which one did I use? It doesn't matter. I think it's BODECA, Bodica. It's something like that. It's SJTerp, but it's called Disarm. So if you, I tell you what, go to GitHub and search Disarm Framework, DISARM, Disarm Framework, and you can go in there for yourself. When you start exploring all the links, because she basically made this archive, and when you start exploring the links, all of a sudden you realize, holy shit! Not only do I have access to the Disarm framework and I can watch these incidents happen in real time, they also have they have a general like almost like a Google search engine type machinery where you can actually physically go in and search psyops. Meaning, like you can go in and search Euromaidan, and anything related, if it happened within that system for Euromaidan in Ukraine, will pop up in that general search. You can they literally built a tool at Graphica that you can search what psyops they ran. You just have to know it by name. It's the craziest thing ever, but it's all sitting there for people to look at. But if you don't know where to look, then you don't know. Um,
But they're mad that Trash brought it
yeah,
forward to the American
yeah, they don't
public
like it.
and exposed it. And bad Trash, bad Trash.
Mm, good trash, good.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
so the next two I'm putting in line is one of a contractor that actually took an incident report in at that time in that hub. Here, matter of fact, you know what? I'm gonna do this. I DM these to people, and it's not gonna be too far down in the DMs. Let me go do that. All right, let me go pull those screenshots because my photo album. I'm a memer too, so like my photo album is complete garbage. It's nonsense. It is not organized at all on my phone. So give me 1 second. Let me pull this up, and you guys can look for yourself. But these are screenshots inside their system. You can see the AI codes, what the code numbers are, how they handle an incident report, and the different actions that they can deploy. It's absolutely crazy. And the thing is, this is why I don't look at social media the same way that other people do. It's why you don't see me doing a lot of reactionary bullshit because it's most of it's probably part of an influence network or an operation. It has nothing to do with anything being real. Or there's a PR company, or there's a I don't know. There's multitude of things, or there's campaigns that are hiring influence operators, whatever it may be. All right, let me save these screenshots one more time. One more again. Save.
I also pinned the Disarm Navigator. Hold on, let me grab
Yeah.
that.
So this is the disarm framework. This is the actual system that contractors will actually can link up to, accept the incident report and contract, and then act accordingly. So yeah, there you go. You found the GitHub. Perfect. There it is. All right. And then next, I'm going to reply with this inside the actual framework itself. You can take a look. So first picture is main hub. Second picture is a contractor, a trans femme. I don't know what the hell that is. And the third is the different commands that they can select depending upon the incident report that came through because it got flagged because of content. Take a look. This is happening right now still, by the way. This is active on social media platforms, just so you know. So again, I just breathe, be calm, don't be so reactionary, and question, be discerning, and question everything when you first see it. Is all I got to say. And there's your evidence. You guys want evidence of what I'm talking about? It's down there in the chat. You can look for yourself. It's all there. And Carolina posted the GitHub to disarm. You will find a way working through those links to get yourself your own access into the disarm framework, and you can go watch it for yourself. You don't take my word for it. And so my recommendation is this: number one, that we need to keep speaking out, keep talking about it. Anything that has court documents and receipts, like that's why I'm talking about Hines v. Stamos again. I've been talking about Missouri v. Biden for 2 years now with Tracy Beans. Her and I have been talking about it for years. This Hines v. Stamos is a supplemental to take out a lot of these groups that we're mentioning right now. I told you about kind of the militant accelerationism that's going on in Telegram. You can go to my highlights tab, listen to those spaces. Me and Becca break all that down with receipts. This is no conjecture. I have opinions, but it doesn't really matter what my opinion is. Form your own. I don't care. I'm not here to sell a narrative. but I'm here to tell you the truth. And nothing is as it seems. And I think that you should treat social media as such because these systems are operating and they're operating in turbo hyperdrive, especially during election season. So I wish you guys well. This space will be my highlights tab along with everything else. You guys can go take a look at it. I'm just a normal dude, man. I got a normal job. I got to travel this month. I got to go over to fucking Asia for a press conference to talk about a new company we acquired. Like I'm just still trying to just tell the truth, the real truth, and not just tribalistic retail politics bullshit. Trump's my guy, and he's my guy for different reasons because some people in his orbit are actually interested in the things that we're talking about. I got Congress members on the Hill that can't do anything right now. I talked to their staffers. Some of the stuff that's happened that's come out in the oversight committee came from me and a couple of other of us out here. I created a company with Millie Weaver called Sleuth Army. We just have a bunch of volunteer researchers. We do all kinds of this work. Becca has since joined us as well. BX_on_X. Go check out her mini documentaries on militant accelerationism. You don't need to take my word for it. Watch it for yourself. She's got like 3 of them up now. They're about 20 minutes apiece. If you're a parent, I highly recommend. And I highly recommend asking them if they have Telegram or Discord and starting getting involved. If they're starting to get a little weird, most likely they're probably getting sucked into these groups. The censorship stuff, we're fighting it. Jill Hines that came in the space. She's from Health Freedom, Louisiana. This case is in the Fifth Circuit in front of Terry Doty. It's a very important case. Aspen Institute, who has a bunch of former CIA and NSA people underneath the Atlantic Council, are fighting them right now. The motion that was just came out today was Aspen Institute trying to withdraw from the lawsuit, and the motion basically plainly and clearly states of why their work with like Kate Starbird and Alex Stamos and Renee DiResta does not preclude them from this lawsuit, and they should be able to remain engaged. They tried to change the venue. That's been shut down. So that's the updates on the case. That's the updates on the censorship industrial complex. That's the updates on everything I've talked about. Thanks, you guys, for being here. I hope you go back and listen because this stuff's serious. It's deep, but it's the reality. It's the truth. It's not. I'm not interested in fighting over retail politics. John, I'm gonna mute you
Oh,
because you're
I'm so
really loud.
sorry.
Uh,
I was going to ask if I could talk in a second before you go.
yeah, I know. I'm just doing my final closing thing like I normally do on Spaces, wrapping it up, summarizing it, so people that came late, if they are interested in listening to it, this recording will be in my highlights tab. You can go listen to it. It'll all be there. We break it down. I had the people directly involved with the case, just like I normally do. Anything that I'm doing, anybody that's directly involved with the topic, they're in the space with me. So I'm very lucky, very blessed to have a network that I built out. Worked very hard for this. So I appreciate you guys. My little small account of 50,000 followers, but I appreciate you guys. So any final thoughts from anybody on the space? John, you wanted to add something, and then Carolina, and then I've said all I needed to say.
I just want to say thank you. This is so important. And the things you're bringing up where they've tried to change venue, it completely denies the necessity of you and others as plaintiffs. We are the plaintiffs with the ability to change venue if we wanted to. They brought us here, they dragged us here by their actions and their sadly lack of accountability, and they want to run this backwards, and I've experienced that. They want to run the trials backwards because they realized that they did not have standing, they had no counterclaim, and that we have the right to update our briefs and change venue if needed, and we don't want to. We're where we want to be. They tried to judge shop. We didn't judge shop. We got one of the most brilliant, genius judges who's thought through this so hard in the entire nation. That man is a genius. And I will say it, even if he was to have opinions that didn't mirror mine, and even if they were opposite, he is a genius.
The thing is, I just want to get back to a place in this country where the government is not telling us what is mis, dis, or malinformation, meaning information that's true. They just don't like how the public reacts to it. I'd like to be able to talk to people on the other side of me. You guys know my personal politics. I'm a Trump guy. I'm not really a Republican. I'm more of a constitutional conservative, small L libertarian guy. It just happens to be that there happens to be an America First caucus on the right in the Republican Party and Donald Trump, whom has people in the orbit quietly that are going to be handling some of the stuff on the back end. I know that for a fact, as you guys know who I'm connected with. So this is why I'm in this fight here. It may change in 4 years. I doubt it, because it's clear to me that the Uniparty has joined on. So we got Dick Cheney's and 200 former Bush, Romney, McCain people joining with the Democrats. Well, anyway, so this fight's going to be long over in the politics sphere, in the intelligence sphere. It's going to be the same thing. This is going to be a forever fight. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I'm done. Can't even stop. And we have real American people. Like as an example, Health Freedom of Louisiana. We had Jill in here, Jill Hines. She's a group of of three moms that had Facebook groups, right? That are at the center of going after the Aspen Institute for censorship. So, again, these are regular Americans stepping up and doing what needs to be done. We need to talk about it. We need to put it out there in digestible, understandable ways. So, Carolina, anything you want to land on, and then I'm gonna close it down. I try to keep these spaced because they are incredibly information dense. Try to keep them short so people go back and listen. But Carolina, anything you want to add before we shut it down?
Yes. So I just want the audience to understand, that we've shared a lot of our perspectives, which we are 100% concerned not only about the fairness, but the freedom and the institutional control. There's been a light in recent issues about moderation and the role of big tech in this political discourse, and what Trash has done, what I have done, what many of us have done behind the scenes and even in the front lines, is just to inform people that frameworks like you said, disarm, could be applied selectively to left-leaning liberals and any of the viewpoints, while labeling us conservative in all of our narratives as kind of like disinformation, malinformation, and pretty much everything that Trash has said. So again, you saw the emphasis with the fact checkers, which in the beginning seemed biased. So my advice to everybody is, use the playbook, but also use it to the benefit and for good, because it's kind of what we're doing, collaboratively without even actually planning it. We're just noticing things that they're doing and keeping our integrity and keeping, everything that pertains to freedom of speech, which is an issue that is very close to our hearts. That's it. We're just trying to make sure that they don't limit, the sharing of not only our perspectives, but the information that we've spent lots of times working. I think Trash has seen that sometimes I've done 20 hours of research with hundreds of people, and he's done his fair share with lots and lots of hours of research. And again, if these people utilize this type of tools to regulate us and to pretty much dismantle individuals like us that are taking the initiative to point people in the right direction and see where the problem is, then we're pretty much screwed. And I'm very concerned, because we do have to look at Section 230. We have to look at the tech industry. We have to figure out how these industrial complexes are working and what can we do at our little level. That's what I think
Yeah,
it's
and
important.
I'll make a quick comment about Section 230. Just remove otherwise objectionable, remove the subjectivity from it, and anything illegal or inciting violence, censor. Child pornography, censor. Like it's no brainer. Pornography, in my opinion, censor, right? But just remove otherwise objectionable from Section 230, and problem solved. It's not that complicated. And as far as anything else, what was I going to say? Oh, I know what I was going to say. Let me be clear about something. I didn't say this before. I was setting it up and I didn't say it. You guys know my politics. You know that I'm a small L libertarian constitutional conservative. My values are found in this little small group of right wing populists. That's where I'm at. And that may change. I don't know. That's where I'm at right now. That seems to be where the truth is being told. And it seems to be where the entire world is putting its weight against. So great. I know I'm in the right place. Um, but I want to remind people on the left, I would like to remind, if there's any Democratic Socialists of America listening, if there's any Green Party progressives listening, let me be clear about something. If these tools exist and these machines exist and your usefulness no longer matters to the government machine or the political machine, they're going to use this system against you as well. And to be clear, I don't want that for you. I want to challenge your ideas publicly without having a nanny government intervening and shaping how you react to something the same way that shaping the way I react to something, which they don't to me anymore. I mean, I don't. I, I know all your shit. I demonstrated that I have all your shit. I'm not interested. I don't. That's why I block so often, guys. That's why I don't listen to bullshit. That's why I actually don't make it bigger, because I don't align with tribes to align with a tribe. I'm trying to speak the truth. I don't care about anything else. But I find allies all over the place. And this, the Bobby Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, Nicole Shanahan, I saw that coming from a mile away. Vivek during primary, a mile away. He was, anyway. My point is that I'm here to build a coalition of people that want to tell the truth that may not agree with me politically or do agree with me politically. I want that for you because I want to sit down at that metaphorical table. I want to sit down at that table with you and agree on at least 40 to 50% of the things. Or at least, I'll give you a perfect example. I always use this example, and I think it's a perfect example. Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is an avowed socialist. He's a funny guy, socialist. Glenn Greenwald, he's a lefty. Matt Taibbi, he's a lefty. Michael Schellenberger, lefty. But they tell the truth and they identify the real problem and talk about it in a real way. We may not agree on how to solve it at the end of the day politically, but we can identify that it's a serious problem for anybody. And that's the team that I'm on right now. So, like, I'm a Trump guy, vote Trump 2024. I voted for him in 2016, 2020. I participated in Republican midterms throughout that time, through all the primaries, because it seems to be that people want to tell the truth in my little enclave in that part of the politics. But make no mistake about it. When your usefulness as BLM or Sunrise Movement, these horizontally aligned affinity groups like Shut Down DC, BLM, Sunrise Movement, all these people, when your usefulness is over, they're coming after you. Democratic Socialists of America, I'm pretty sure you're feeling it. I'm pretty sure your budget's no longer being supported. That's why you guys are going bankrupt if you're listening, because your usefulness is no longer there. They needed you to burn down cities to put people in a state of fear on top of COVID to go along with sweeping election reform changes so they could steal an election. Like, that's clear. The shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election, go look at Molly Ball's reporting in Time Magazine. She'll tell you all about it. But once your usefulness is over, they're going to use these machines on you. And so what I'm saying is that these tools and these machines need to be rooted out from these Department of Defense, Pentagon contractors like Graphica and MITRE. They need to be rooted out from these NGOs like Stanford Internet Observatory that created the Election Integrity Partnership and Virality Project, or Citizens for a New United, which is what they rebranded into, or like the State Department of what they're doing and enlisting British Army intelligence officers like the person like S.J. Turpin having a meeting in the Obama White House in 2017 before Trump takes office, and weaponizing Media Matters and Nandini Jammies of the world, and who's funded by Soros, and utilizing all these groups. Once your usefulness is done, they're coming for you next. And so don't you want to at least agree, even if you hate me, like even if you Whoopi Goldberg hate me, right? You have TDS through the roof. Do you want that happening to you? And if you do, then you're a fucking tyrant, and I want to share no country with you. You're a communist. But I don't think you are. I think you've been psyoped with these tools that I've been talking about into believing that. And I think that if you woke up, you might see that we probably agree on more than we disagree on. But the reason I talk about this stuff is because when it's done, they're coming for you next. Trust me on this. And when the balance of power swings the way it's going to swing, because what it looks like to me is that there's going to be a 51-49 majority in the Senate. We're going to maintain the slim majority in the House. And if we can overcome the steel and overcome the machine, and we get these laws changed in these various states that I've been working on, like down in Georgia and in various other states, and get this election reform done, and what we were able to do in Virginia with the ballots and everything else, if we can get all that changed, we're enough where we can overwhelm the steel and take the executive back, and then resist the next 3 months of violence between November, December, and January of Inauguration Day, and we take back that balance of power. Those same groups inside the deep state are going to be fighting for survival. They're going to be trying to make deals, and they are going to sweeten up and butter up to a lot of the America First people that are actually going to take control of the GOP like they just did. And then they're going to want to make deals. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, as the values and the thoughts and everything and the pendulum swings, it's going to be weaponized against you. And you're going to have very uninformed people on the right are going to be cheering it on, just like you're doing on the left, and there's going to be tyranny over you using these same systems. And I'm here to tell you, you don't want that. You don't want what we've experienced the last 8 years. You don't want it. I'm telling you. And maybe we'll start to get to a place of truth. And that's my fight. That's where I'm at. That's why I go after people like Norm Eisen and Mark Elias and David Brock and the intelligence agencies, and Shelby Pearson, in charge of elections at the Office of Director of National Intelligence, behind the back of Radcliffe when he was in power, to help facilitate CISA and Director and Office of National Intelligence role in the censorship machines. Yes, these people. These are the names. These are their documents. These are their systems. These are their names. Remember the names. Thanks, guys.
Ash, I wanted to add one more thing. I don't think a lot of people realize that during the pandemic, there was another organization. It was a United Nations backed initiative. I think it was called Team Halo. Remember, we had Nicole Siratek, who was a nurse that did the whistleblowing on the ventilators. And this group literally destroyed her life. I mean, they were harassing her online. You know, this organization was supposed to be, you know, to bust down on the misinformation on COVID-19 and the vaccines. But, you know, supposedly these people were composed of scientists, doctors, healthcare professionals, all around that. But through TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, you know, instead of countering information, they made, you know, very, very important people's life miserable for 2.5 years. And I think this was, you know, an understatement when I tell you that these people harassed and abused and did some horrible, heinous things, you know, to people that were just like trash and like me, trying to shed light on something that was just so unbelievably, like, I couldn't believe that people weren't seeing what we were seeing. Like, what happened at that point that people went so blind and turned into just being literally told what to do, and they followed right, you know, from wrong, or wrong from right, whatever. Now, this organization, you know, I really want to look into, because when I follow the money on them and I went onto the United Nations verified websites, you know, it went on an entire web of how all of these NGOs intertwined with one another. So if you follow the money, if you understand what people like Trash is trying to tell you, then you would see why these people see, you know, individuals like us as a major target. Now, big news out there for all of those of you listening that are, you know, from these agencies, and you have been targeting, you know, Trash or myself or many of us. We have taken some time to multiply, so we're not alone anymore. We have a lot of people that are doing a lot of incredible research and helping us, and we've multiplied. So I think it's just a matter of time that is going to fall, like, you know, right in their face, and we're going to win. But we cannot do this without you. And again, please support, retweet the space. I'm kind of glad that it wasn't like a huge space, because, you know, once people see like the big numbers, they try to come in the stage and pivot, you know, the conversation and share their stories, which it's, you know, we're very grateful that that happens. But I think you covered every single detail in this compact space, you know, that I think narrows and kind of pivots and motivates people to know where to look at and how to fight back.
Yeah, yeah, and
And they
if you
can
were,
hate us or like us, but
yeah, I
at
don't
the end
really
of the
care.
day,
Like
this is
that's
good.
but
Do
that's
it.
all.
Like,
But how
like
many
us or
times
not, share.
well, but like that, how many times, like in spaces, have you heard? I don't give a shit whether you like me or not. I really don't give a fuck. But the thing is, I'm gonna need you to refute the receipts, and they can't. And so that's why I do what I do. And I'm like, listen, I don't have a receipt on that. I don't fucking know. Maybe it's turning the frogs gay. I don't know, Alex. Run with it. It's funny. I love it. And it was a meme on what was actually true. Like, I understand all those things, but I don't need to chase every rabbit hole. Like, I've got enough on my plate here that is substantial, with evidence, with documents. Like, I would actually like, matter of fact, before I close, I was going to close it down, but now that I've shared these documents, these screenshots down below, anybody listening, if you would like to come up and tell me, have you ever seen this? And because if you haven't, this was happening to you. This is what is going on. This is why you see all these non-verified fake accounts. They deploy those AI bot networks. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, don't like me, don't like me. I don't really give a fuck. Like, I got my small, tight circle of people I trust, that I love very dearly, that are close to me. I've got my squad, and like everybody else, like, I don't care that you like me or not. I just need you to tell me if you have counter evidence to it. And the answer invariably is obviously no, because these documents also make their way into court cases and into congressional record. So like, just stop. I don't care if you like me or not. I really don't. That's why sometimes I might fly off the handle, because I'm just like, dude, if just stop fucking around with these lies and this conjecture, and like, quit letting these people play with your emotions. They're most likely influence operators paid by a campaign, paid by rapid response, paid by intelligence agencies. Maybe they're contracted. Maybe they're just so psyop that they're fucking stupid. But either way, like, I don't really care. I'm going to call you a faggot, and I'm going to push you off the stage. I don't care, because I'm going to need you to tell me that this information is incorrect, and you can't do it. You can't do it. Of course we
Trash,
can.
I just want to say one thing. If okay, and this is really, I mean this from like the love of my heart to you. If you see that somebody's like playing with your emotions and doing the whole gossip and the whole like Saul Alinsky rules for radicals, please come on. You cannot allow these people to drag you to play their stupid game. Just like
No.
Trash said, refute the damn information. I don't give a shit if you think we're pretty ugly, we sound good, we don't sound good,
Oh
we're
no, listen,
rehearsed,
listen.
we're
I'm
not
very
rehearsed.
blessed. I'm good
Is the
looking and I have a
information
good
true?
voice. Like, listen, I'm good looking and I have a good voice. Like,
Hey,
to
I
be
can
clear,
say
like,
he is because I've seen him in person and I've had to fight a bunch of ladies off of him. So I tell you, he's a good
but
looking
no,
guy.
it's just a joke. It's a joke. It's my point is that yes, I do have a certain confidence where I'm like, I don't really give a shit about. Calm down, lady. I don't care. But like, I'm just saying that like I really want people to focus on the information, and I'm glad that I'm not like some like known personality on camera. Even though I've got my studio set up, I will be podcasting or streaming soon and doing interviews. But it's just the work has been more important than me trying to build a brand. Is my point, and I think that I just want people to look at the information. Forget me. Just look at the information, please. Is my point. Wake up.
Trash, can I
Wake up.
say
Wake up. Wake
that
up. Wake
we've
up. Wake up.
been
Wake up.
can I say that we've been offered pretty much like every opportunity
Yeah,
imaginable by major
I've
networks
turned
and
down
we
a
just
quarter.
said no.
Yeah, I turned down $250,000 to sign a contract to be a sole content creator for somebody. I turned it down.
Yeah. Do you remember I sent you the screen grabs about the project that I turned down on
Yeah,
a documentary on my own? And how much money did they put on there? It was
yeah.
like almost $1 million. And I'm not going to be bought. I don't think Trash is
No,
going to be bought. I think we're
no.
just going to keep doing what we have to do, and we have a system. We know what we're doing. We're doing it. We don't need everybody to do it with. We do our own. That's it. And you can
Yeah,
do your
like
own too.
yeah, like Millie and I started a company. Millie Weaver and I started a company, Sleuth Army. We've got a group of volunteer investigators in various different states. We do all kinds of things, all kinds of work with that. Um, and sometimes we get like bounties or contracts. And cool, I put an extra $500 in my pocket, $1,000 in my pocket, but we do the work that's worth 10 grand. Um, I'll stay in that lane because Millie and I are creating a documentary, and we're creating a documentary about um, the sunrise Zoom calls and the horizontally aligned affinity groups and the Lisa Fithians of the world, these protest groups that are how they're funded. And we're going to talk about Arabella. We're going to talk about Oma Diar. We're going to talk about Soros is really low hanging fruit, man. Soros is really, really low hanging fruit. We need to talk about Arabella. We need to talk about Oma Diar. We need to talk about foreign governments. That's really where the meat and potatoes are. We're going to put a documentary about all of that, how the Feds for Democracy Now phone calls, how that we have their entire Zoom call. We had somebody infiltrated and recorded all their Zoom calls of what they were planning for January 4th, 5th, and 6th in 2020, like 2021. Like, come on. Anyway, we're putting it and we're doing it ourselves. Um, no, I can't be bought. I refuse. If I could be bought, I'd have been bought out a long time ago. Trust me.
Yeah, we would be in yachts right now, just like tweeting
I mean,
our
listen, if it was
mansions and
about fame, if it was about you remember, I used to co-host with Mario on his Spaces. I walked away
oh,
from
can I
that.
say
I
like
walked away from that, no bad blood. I walked away from it because I couldn't talk about the things I wanted to talk about, and I had to balance activists. I'm not here to facilitate an activist argument. There's no shade. We have no beef. Mario and I parted amicably, for real, like for real, for real. It's just not my lane, and maybe it's far more entertaining for people if they get to see the blood sport of activists arguing with each other. That's all lies. That's not the truth. It's spin. It's stupid. It's a waste of time. It's not something I want to invest my time in. And then on top of that, as a host in large spaces like that, your job is to probe and ask questions of the guests. Motherfucker, I want to talk about what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about your activist shit or like I'm not interested. Again, no shade. Shout out to them. He built something great over there. That's great. I have no beef. It's fine. I left on my own
Trash,
accord.
but what we're trying to do is we're trying to just present you the evidence. We don't have time to sit here and try to negotiate with stupid people whether they're right or wrong. We've done the research, we've done the investigating, we've done, the digging. Here's what we found. Simple.
Right. You know, it's funny. You know, it's funny. Like when I used to co-host with Mario, I actually have my own IMDb page. If you go search Mario Nafal on IMDb and look at co-hosts and hosts, I'm in there. Like they have the old raccoon photo. I'm on IMDb. That's so fucking crazy to me. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My point
Well, I mean,
is,
you were quote tweeted many times by credible networks. Your work
yep,
has made it into the TV. I mean, of course, they're gonna want
yeah.
to stop you. I
Well, if you,
parted ways with Mario because again, we disagreed on the recent wars and things like that, and he chose specific agendas and to promote specific people that were, I
I,
believe, to be very bad. And I
well,
just
I'm not sure
said,
that
I'm
he
gonna do
did
what I
per.
have to do.
Well, I'm not sure that he did per se. Although, yes, I understand what you're talking about.
Well,
Look,
they're still there.
no, I know. But I can tell you, listen, Mario takes a lot of flack. I don't know what upper echelon is talking about. Seems credible. I listen. Crypto is wild, wild west. I don't want to get into that. I'm not here to speak to or fluff up or whatever. I'm no nonsense. You guys know this. But I can tell you that Mario always treated me with respect. He was nice to me. He was a good guy to me, and I appreciate the time that I was co-hosting over there. But I did leave on my own accord. There is no bad blood. There is no beef. I just the stuff that we're talking about here, in my opinion, is far more important than talking points from each side. I'm just not interested in it. That's just not my thing. And that's why people that are connected that show up as guests on this space, they have bigger reach than I do because that's what sells. People like snapshots and sound bites. They don't like the truth. They don't like the truth at all. Because if you tease out what we're talking about here, your entire belief structure of what you thought you knew becomes really shaky. But I don't want to live any other way. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm rambling. I'm
I
gonna shut it
think
down.
the end of the I think at the end of the day, what's important to us is that the information gets to the public. You know, like the other day, Mario hosted a space. I still sent my Brazilian network out there. I mean, I was the one translating for them in the first Brazilian space with several people that I speak who they speak Spanish and I speak Spanish, and
Yeah,
they
me
speak
too. And me
Portuguese.
too. I don't speak Spanish, but I was there too as well with those people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were there, and it
Yeah.
was insane what we had to go through. I mean, there were people being held down and jabbed in the whole
Yep.
shenanigans with the J8,
Yep.
the January 8th. So bottom line is, yes, we understand that people are working, and some
Excuse me.
sure they get
You speak
paid, and
English?
that's fine with them.
Sorry about
But
that.
yeah,
Twitter autoplays. Sorry, Twitter autoplays. I refreshed. Yeah,
that's
no,
okay.
that's exactly right.
Did you find
So,
somebody that sounds like me again at the restaurant?
huh?
Did you find some other lady that sounds just like me again? I
No,
remember that.
I don't know. This is some culture war bullshit. Um, no, by the way, the culture war is fake and gay, just so you know. Stop spending your energy on it. Let the people like Jennifer McWilliams, Courage is a Habit, that are on our side of truth, handle the education sector. Corey DeAngelis, Christopher Rufo, they're doing great. James Lindsay doing great. That's their lanes. Let them handle it. Anyway.
Oh, Chris Billboard too with the gender. I mean,
Oh
there's
yeah,
so many
Billboard Chris is
really
great. Yeah, Chris is
warriors.
great. Yeah, yeah. And I've been fortunate enough to build this kind of network with people. We don't have large production podcasts and talk about these things publicly. We just all do the stuff, do the work. So thank you guys for being here.
Yeah,
This
so
this is a
sorry we don't have
long-winded
all the
rant.
fancy
I
things.
know.
We just have the work. That's it. Here's the
Yeah,
work.
some
Take
of the
it or
stuff that I've
leave
been
it.
talking about here it seems self-aggrandizing. It's not. I never talk about this stuff. It's kind of like the inside baseball, how the sausage is made kind of stuff. But this space specifically was I hope it was very informative for you. Go back and look at the documents yourself. Go to my highlights tab. Go back and listen to spaces. Everything that I mentioned, it's all documented. There's proof for everything I'm saying. I put the receipts, what I was talking about with the psyop stuff, is down there. You can look for yourself. The GitHub is there. Do all the investigations. Go wild. I know this is new to you, but if you want to chase something, this is important. It's shaping how social media reacts. It's shaping how then legacy media reacts to social media. And so, love you
And if you
guys.
want to refute it,
Yeah.
just come and
Let me
refute it.
end.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, go, go, go. Bye,
Yeah, if you
darling.
want to refute it, go ahead and refute it. But I'm going to need you to know why. I'm going to need to know why you're refuting it. So, anyway, thanks, guys. I appreciate your time. This will be my highlights tab. Love you. Bye.